Chapter 1062. It was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. The sarcophagus was like a living being, standing there stiffly, motionless and silent. Second brother. Chu Feng stood at the edge of the sinkhole with a brilliant smile on his face, like a winter jasmine in early spring. The nine nether spirit in the sarcophagus was sure that he didn't hear wrongly. A nightmarish feeling welled up in his heart. Then, with a clank, he slipped off the stone in fright. Ah, help, I fell down again. The nine nether spirit was anxious. His body trembled as he was distracted, causing the sarcophagus to fall. Amidst the clanking sounds, it kept colliding with the stone walls along the way. Fortunately, he wasn't far from the exit. There were many vines in the upper half of the sinkhole. The sarcophagus fell, breaking the dense vines, and finally stopped. Clank! The sarcophagus trembled as it was tossed onto a stone cliff by the nine nether spirit. He really wanted to curse and curse. Goddamn little bastard, you actually waited for me here, for 4 years. I hashtag yin%. At this moment, his mood couldn't be described. After climbing for more than 4 years, he had just emerged, and he had run into that little bastard again. How great was his willpower? Could it be that he had been waiting for him here all along? He really couldn't help but ask the heavens. There was simply no justice in the world. He had been waiting here and still wanted to kick him down? At this moment, the nine nether spirit wanted to cry. He felt that he was too unlucky to have met such a superb little bastard. It really made him speechless. Chu Feng acted like an old man. With a pair of small hands behind his back, he said, "Second brother, what's wrong with you? Why are you so emotional? This old man has been waiting for you for a long time. We should be closer." To hell with being close to second brother. Back then, you were the one who kicked me down, and now you're pretending to be holy. The nine nether spirit really wanted to eat him alive. However, after a moment of silence, he compromised. Lowering his stance, he opened his mouth in the sarcophagus. "Brother Qinzhou, what do you want?" Chu Feng raised his head with a pair of small hands behind his back and looked into the distance. He didn't look down at the sarcophagus at the bottom of the sinkhole. With a very profound expression, he said, "Do you know why I am waiting here?" "I do not know." The ninth nether Gui said. Actually, he was cursing in his heart. "You bastard, you're so bad that you have sores all over your head and pus all over your feet. Aren't you guarding here for this old man?" Chu Feng sighed and said, "I'm doing this for the sake of the common people, for the sake of saving the world of the living. I'm standing here, savoring the loneliness of the ages, pondering over the myriad scrolls of the mortal world." Nine nether. Actually, he wanted to say, "Please speak normally. You're so old. Have you weaned off milk? You have the nerve to spout nonsense. Even this old man is too embarrassed to act like this." Chu Feng coughed lightly and said, "Second brother, you've lived here for a long time. Have you seen Granny Meng's soup? Go and give me 2 bowls." Why did he suddenly change the topic? The nine nether ghost's heart skipped a beat, but he did not make a sound. He had a feeling that this grandson had come for him, and now that his intentions were revealed, the dagger was revealed. Chu Feng said solemnly, "Second brother, this is very important. For the sake of the common people, I need 2 bowls of Meng Po's soup." Pretending to be a wolf with a big tail, the netherworld spirit really wanted to reprimand him. Chu Feng sensed his silence and lowered his head to take a look. He also jumped in fright. That stone coffin flipped to the side and revealed a terrifying area. There were claw marks on the stone coffin, and the strength was so great that it almost pierced through the coffin. Even a nine nether ghost himself couldn't break open this kind of stone coffin and couldn't come out. There was actually a living being that clawed it to this state. Did it almost crack the coffin? Second brother, what kind of terrifying things have you experienced these few years? Even your own bed frame almost broke. You've really suffered. What exactly happened? Chu Feng had a very concerned look on his face. Meanwhile, the nine nether ghost wanted to spit at him, and even more so wanted to use the sole of his shoe to stamp his face. What happened? Don't you know in your heart? 4 years ago, you threw me into the heavenly pit and cried crocodile tears. Now, you still have the nerve to show concern? Second brother, big brother is very concerned about you. What exactly was there in any manner for you to fall to such a state? You didn't suffer any great injuries, right? Chu Feng inquired about his well-being. The nine-nether ghost grinded his teeth and really wanted to bite him to death. However, when he heard about his experiences in Yin Manor, he still shivered. That hellish torment made his scalp go numb even now. When he sunk into the Yin soil, there were all kinds of scalp-numbing wails. There was also the dense smell of blood and soil. There were even terrifying claws that clawed at him from the soil and almost dug through his coffin, which was made of astonishing material. Even now, he still felt his blood run cold. He really didn't want to experience that kind of terrifying experience again. Second brother, why are you so silent? Chu Feng asked him. After a long period of silence, the nine-nether ghost opened his mouth and said in a rough voice, "Don't call me second brother anymore. You're giving me goosebumps. Let's make a deal." "Speak," the nine-nether ghost said. "In these 4 years, I've collected all the unearthed Granny Meng's soup. I can give you some, but you have to swear not to do anything and let me go." This time, it was Chu Feng's turn to be silent. He didn't make a sound for a long time. Only when a gust of mountain wind blew over did he suddenly let out a loud shout. "Bastard, it's actually you. You made me wait for 4 years in vain and wasted my time. So it turns out that all the Granny Meng's soup was taken by you." This time, it was Chu Feng's turn to flip out. The two of them had switched roles. Chu Feng was flustered and exasperated. If he didn't have the half a precious pill refined from the 6 paths of reincarnation blood, he really wouldn't be able to do anything. "Little bastard, now I finally understand that you have a request of me. Quickly, let me go up." At this moment, the nine-nether ghost was calm and threatened Chu Feng from below. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A dozen divine magnetic stones flew down and formed a special pattern. They landed several meters away from the stone coffin, and then the nine-nether ghost cried out loudly because the entire coffin was shaking violently. "There really is one?" Chu Feng was astonished. He found that there were some crude stone containers hanging on the other side of the coffin. They were even sealed. He used his domain to shake the area and shook off 2 of the containers. "Little bastard, how dare you? You actually dared to steal this old man's things." The nine-nether ghost was furious. There was no one who could pull a tiger's tooth out of its mouth, but now a child was actually robbing him. Moreover, he was doing it in such a brazen and undisguised manner. Whoosh, whoosh. The domain shook, and the 2 stone containers moved away from the coffin. Chu Feng threw down a divine, magnetic stone amidst the tearing sounds. It erupted with radiance and formed a small domain to protect the 2 sealed containers. Boom! The coffin shone with scarlet light, and a bloody mist rose up. The nine-nether ghost wanted to rise up and snatch back the 2 stone containers. However, it was already too late. He was too far away and was obstructed by the domain. Additionally, this area was turning upside down and the terrain was shaking violently. The stone coffin would be overturned at any moment and fall into the sinkhole. "There are actually 6 more jars of Granny Meng's soup." Again, Chu Feng shouted. "Dream on," the nine-nether ghost said furiously. He was already stamping with rage after having 2 jars snatched away. Now, this little bastard wanted more? "Are you going to give it to me or not?" Chu Feng threatened. "No." The nine-nether ghost stomped his feet. In truth, he wanted to haggle over the price. What benefits would he get if he gave it to him directly? However, Chu Feng was fairly decisive. He stood at the edge of the sinkhole and picked up a large limestone weighing several thousand kilograms. Then he smashed it down. Boom! There was a violent tremor. "Ah, little bastard, this old man will kill you," the nine-nether ghost cried out loudly. The stone coffin could no longer remain stable after being smashed. It fell down from the cliff and into the depths of the sinkhole. "I've just climbed up. It's been 4 years, and I've just seen the light of day again. But in the blink of an eye, I'm going back to freedom. Do you know how to negotiate? Don't you know how to bargain?" It was cursing loudly. It was completely messed up and filled with fear. Chu Feng looked down at the sinkhole and shouted, "Don't worry. There's still a large stone platform down there that can receive you. I reckon that you'll be able to climb up again in half a year. Climb slowly, and we'll talk in half a year." "Bastard!" The nine-nether ghost was so angry that it was about to explode. Chu Feng slowly climbed down and picked up 2 stone utensils from a pile of rocks. He shook the utensils, and the sound of water splashing could be heard. When he opened them, a dense and holy luster shone out. A sweet fragrance filled the air, and the liquid was sparkling. Multicolored splendor circulated, attracting one's attention. Chu Feng quickly closed the lid, afraid that the medicinal effects would dissipate. This was Granny Meng's soup. He didn't dare to drink it in such a place. If he suddenly lost his memory, who knew what would happen? Second brother, reflect on yourself. We'll meet again in half a year. After Chu Feng finished shouting, he climbed up the sinkhole with a whoosh and disappeared in the blink of an eye. He couldn't wait to run back to the divine temple and drink Granny Meng's soup. When the red sun rose and illuminated the misty mountain forest with a bright red, Chu Feng stood in front of the divine temple and made all his preparations while facing the morning glow. He had already carved some words on the ground, in case he lost his memory, to remind himself of what to do. After that, he stared at the Granny Meng's soup. It was sparkling and translucent with radiance contained within. It would gush out from time to time and was accompanied by astonishing yang qi that could practically burn people. Chu Feng found a mountain wolf to experiment on and fed it a little. As a result, it became visibly stronger and revealed its ferocious nature. Even its gaze became fierce. In the end, he felt that there was no problem. He released the mountain wolf and began to drink it himself. Gulp. After drinking a big mouthful, Chu Feng felt waves of heat rolling all over his body. This came from his bone marrow. His whole body was enveloped in a layer of brilliance. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were all translucent, and his soul light was surging at the same time. He hurriedly operated his breathing technique to adjust his state. In an instant, he felt an indescribable energy growing in his body. It was filled with astonishing vitality and replenished his limbs and bones. It's really a great supplement. Chu Feng experienced the power of the Granny Meng's soup. It dissolved in his body but didn't activate his potential. Instead, the soup itself transformed into a mysterious energy that nourished all the cells in his body. It didn't guide out any special potential to further enhance his constitution. However, he knew that his potential was increasing rapidly and becoming stronger. Gulp. Chu Feng drank another big mouthful and then sealed the vessel. He felt dizzy and vaguely saw a nether manor path with a bowl of Granny Meng's soup beside it. I'm actually hallucinating. He shook his head and didn't dare to drink anymore. In the end, his consciousness became blurry and he felt his memory deteriorating as if he was about to lose it. Later on, all kinds of memories became hazy and he couldn't remember them clearly. Only then did he fall to the ground with a plop and fall asleep. When he woke up the next day, he found Ji Hu, Fatty Dumpling, and the others watching over him. They were very worried. What's wrong with you? We saw the words you carved on the ground. Did you drink Granny Meng's soup? What's that? What kind of ghost soup is that? Do you want to die? It's nothing. It's very normal. I'll let you guys drink some later. It's a great supplement. Chu Feng shook his head and stood up. His memory had returned, and he felt refreshed and full of energy. Just like that, half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Chu Feng drank the 2 jars of Granny Meng's soup and, of course, gave some to Ji Hu, Fatty Dumpling, and the others. This was something that could increase one's potential and could especially make up for the body's deficiencies. It was one of the most precious liquids in the Yang realm. Chu Feng's spirit was obviously at its peak. All the cells in his body were glowing as if they were igniting one star after another. Afterwards, he went to the heavenly pit again. Because half a year had passed, he felt that the 9 nether spirits were about to climb up again. This time, he could have a good talk with them. In fact, he would rush over every morning to find out where this second brother of his had climbed to. Yes, I'll take it easy this time. Don't accidentally scare him into the deepest part of the heavenly pit. It was so dangerous last time. Fortunately, the vines and the stone chestnuts below caught the stone coffin. Underneath the heavenly pit, the 9 nether spirits was panting and almost used up all his strength before he finally saw the light of day again. Chapter 1063. I've finally climbed up again. I don't believe this grandson is so patient. He's still waiting up there. The nine, Nether muttered to himself. At the same time, he was somewhat excited. This time, he had climbed even higher than last time and could already see the scenery outside the sinkhole. It was only a few dozen meters away. He said happily, "Great Een and Great Yong, who's stronger? Once I appear, I'm the king of the world." The nine Nether had a smile on his face and seemed to be in a good mood. That was because he had already used his special spiritual senses to investigate the outside world. There was no movement, so that brat shouldn't be there. At this point, he wanted to sing a prehistoric immortal burial song at the top of his lungs. Demadala hidden. Not to mention, the majestic sound waves spread out with a desolate aura. It was as though he had seen an incomparably terrifying era where evolvers rose to power and immortals were buried. Vaguely, the battle spread over millions of kilometers. A node in the history of evolution resonated and was about to shatter. "Second brother, what song are you singing? The rhythm isn't bad, but I can completely understand this bird language." It was at this time that a young voice arrived and interrupted the nine Nether's mood. It petrified the nine Nether who was climbing with all his might and fixed the stone coffin between the stone cliffs. "You, why are you here again?" The nine Nether's mental defenses were about to collapse. This grandson's patience was simply too good. He had waited for him for half a year again. How could he know that Chu Feng was using domain methods? He had been monitoring his movements through the fluctuations of Earth Chi and had long since calculated when he would come up. "Second brother, I haven't seen you for half a year. How have you been? I missed you so much." Chu Feng's face was full of joy as he landed on the edge of the sinkhole like a magpie. Scram! The nine Nether couldn't bear it any longer and really wanted to fall out. He even had the urge to jump into the sinkhole himself and not wait to be kicked down. But he was at a loss at the last moment and was extremely reluctant. He had climbed arduously for 4.5 years before seeing the light of day again. It was too miserable. "Second brother, who are you scolding?" Chu Feng asked him solemnly. "You're cursing the heavens. It's none of your business. I'm just recalling the prehistoric times. During that era, this old man moved unhindered through the world, and no one dared to oppose me. But now, I want to cry. Come on, don't play the pity card." Dongqing already said that as long as it's someone from the nine underworlds, they would only have a vague impression. It's impossible for them to remember their past lives. Who are you trying to fool? Also, if you still want to cry, tell me how many people you've harmed in Lightning Strike Mountain. It's already good enough that I didn't immediately execute justice on behalf of the heavens and eliminate you, a scourge. The nine Nether God's voice was sonorous and full of vigor as he said, "I didn't harm good people. All those who died had greed in their hearts and evil intentions. I don't target good people." "What do you mean? You've clearly harmed me before, and you're saying that I'm not a good person?" Chu Feng tilted his head and looked down, rolling his eyes. "Don't you know whether I'm a good person or not? Don't you know it yourself?" The ninth Netherworld Gui retorted. Boom! The reply he received was a rock that weighed more than 80 kilograms. It smashed onto the stone coffin, scaring the nine Netherworld Gui out of his wits. He thought that this little bastard was going to be ruthless again and smash him down. "Why don't you try saying it again?" Chu Feng threatened. "Big brother, please be lenient. This time, I climbed up with sincerity because I want to negotiate with you. We'll use the prehistoric heaven burial curse to swear an oath that binds both parties. From now on, we'll become sworn brothers and share blessings together." Without a doubt, the rock just now made the nine Netherworld Gui terrified. If he was really smashed down and entered Een Manor again, it would be a fate worse than death. He reckoned that if he entered Een Manor again, the stone coffin would be torn apart by those terrifying claws. At that time, he most likely wouldn't be able to survive. "All right, give me another 6 pots of Granny Meng's soup," shouted Chu Feng, officially starting the negotiation. "Little bastard, that... Little brother, you're too ruthless. I've collected a total of 8 pots of Granny Meng's soup. I'll leave them for myself after I escape from the stone coffin. You stole 2 pots before, and now you're going to rob them all?" Not a single pot is left. Don't be too greedy. We have to win together. All right then, give me 5 pots, and we'll share blessings together. Fuck your share blessings together. They're all mine, okay? This was dividing up. How is this sharing? The 9 netherworld Gui trembled in anger and wanted to beat him up. Brother, a person can't be a primordial dust boat. Leave a way out for me, your brother. Say, you threw me down the first time, and then you smashed me down the second time. Isn't this a waste? This old man is basically helping you collect Granny Meng's soup down there. After painstakingly enduring for 4.5 years, in the end, I can only keep 1 pot for myself. I'll leave the other 2 pots for you. Chu Feng waved a small hand and had a very loyal appearance. In the end, he emphasized, I really can't give any more. The 9 netherworld Gui was furious and said, even the wicked prehistoric deities weren't as immoral as you. You're so young, yet you're so despicable, shameless, and vulgar. Do you think it's easy for this old man? In the end, I've worked hard for nothing. Besides, what's the use of having so much? Do you want to lose your memories? Chu Feng's heart was moved. Could it really erase one's memories if one drank too much of this thing? How about this? I'll leave you 3 pots. If I don't have enough, I'll ask you for more. My body has been quite weak recently, so I really need to replenish myself. Nonsense. I can clearly sense that your body's functions have reached an extreme. If you don't believe this old man, you'll definitely overdo it when the time comes. Chu Feng didn't want to listen to his rambling, so they made a mutual vow that he would leave 3 pots of Granny Meng's soup for himself and leave the rest on the ground. In the end, Chu Feng used his domains to move a few pots up and put them away for himself. Enough, second brother. Let's discuss how to become sworn brothers. Chu Feng asked him about the heaven burial curse oath and verified it with the most powerful letter written by the stone fox, celestial venerable's master. Before long, the 9 nether demon cried out, What? You really want to be my big brother? What a joke. How long have I lived? I originally wanted to become sworn brothers with you and become your elder brother. How dare you make such an unreasonable request? It's not like you haven't called me that before. Let's just use the same address as last time. There's no need to change it. You won't lose out if you become my second brother. This so-called sworn brotherhood will definitely be a friendship that has gone through life and death. If you have any resentment in your heart, you might as well go back to Een Manor. Do you know who I am? The 9 nether demon cried out. I'm your second brother, Gu Chenhai. You what? You always think you're powerful from prehistoric times. Then tell me, why can't you jump up now? Become my second brother, and I'll protect you. For a moment, the 9 nether demon was speechless. Although he was indignant, the situation was beyond his control. No matter how much he persisted, it would be futile, and he would even suffer a great loss. Chu Feng asked, Second brother, what use do you have now? Let me ask you, if I use you as a heaven-overturning seal and smash you, will you be invincible within a range of 10 meters and be able to swallow all the experts alive? That was because he heard Dong Qing say last time not to get close to the stone coffin. Within a certain range, this 9 nether demon could show off its terrifying might. Chu Feng had some misgivings, but when the 9 nether demon heard his words, it was even more terrified than him and felt a wave of fear and trepidation. What do you mean? You want to use me as a brick and smash me as you wish? The 9 nether demon asked apprehensively. Chu Feng said, After we become sworn brothers, I'm preparing to travel the world and officially make my debut. If you're a burden, how can you roam the world of the living with me? You have to be able to protect yourself. I have to understand your strength. You want to roam the world with such a small fart? The 9 nether demon felt that this grandson didn't have any good ideas. He wanted to bring it along as a protective talisman. He definitely wanted to achieve some kind of goal. Are you thinking of going somewhere, but don't dare to go on your own? It asked vigilantly. Nonsense. I just want to meet the heroes of the world. With a clang, Chu Feng used his domain to bring up the stone coffin. He saw the rising sun, and the faint golden radiance illuminated everything. The stone coffin was no longer shrouded in yin qi, and the patterns on it were all glowing. Come, second brother. We're about to become sworn brothers. Let's drink a cup of Grandma Meng's soup first. Chu Feng opened a jar and drank a small mouthful with an intoxicated expression. Now, he already knew that he wouldn't faint no matter how much he drank, so he wasn't worried. How am I supposed to drink? Let me out of the stone coffin, said the nether demon. I can't open the stone coffin. You can give me a jar of Grandma Meng's soup, and I'll drink in your place. I don't want to talk. The nether demon was indignant, but its mood soon improved. This little devil didn't kick it down the sinkhole again. Its heart was full of hope as it saw the dawn of freedom. Suddenly, a terrifying beam of light flew over from the distance. An iron arrow shot through the ground in front of Chu Feng with a bang and formed a large pit. If he hadn't dodged in time, he would have been killed on the spot. At the critical moment, his extraordinary spiritual senses, which far surpassed his actual realm, saved him. After all, he was once a divine king. Then, he saw a red-scaled beast appear in the distance. It was shaped like a Pegasus, but its body was covered in scarlet dragon scales. It raised its head and neighed. A young man in his teens was sitting on top of it with a cold smile as he slowly lowered his bow. Who are you? Why are you shooting people at will? Chu Feng angrily rebuked. Oh, put down the stone jar in your hand. That's my fortune. The young man spoke with a cold smile and an indifferent attitude. He didn't take Chu Feng seriously at all. His eyes were fiery as he stared at the stone jar containing Grandma Meng's soup. Chu Feng was immediately enraged after hearing this. He actually dared to provoke the Tai Sui, steal his precious liquid, and even wanted to kill him. This was intolerable. Put down the stone jar and scram if you don't want to die, said the young man. Woof! In the forest, an enormous vicious dog ran over. It was as large as a house, and its bloody mouth was wide open, carrying a terrifying viciousness. Dog, tear me to pieces and bring our natural luck over, the young man coldly ordered. He looked at Chu Feng and revealed a sneer. He didn't care about his life or death. At the same time, the sounds of people shouting and horses neighing could be heard from the forest. A group of people rushed over. There were more than 10 of them, and they were all experts. They carried divine radiance around them. There were actually deities among them. You all are courting death. I'll help you out. Chu Feng coldly replied. He knew that this battle was unavoidable. Perhaps it was time for a dragon to soar through the desolate border and stir up a storm. Chapter 1064. Chu Feng was furious. This youth was too domineering, wanting to kill him with an iron arrow and snatch away Granny Meng's soup. He waited solemnly. The group of people on the other side were not kind. Divine radiance actually rushed out, and the group of people were like stars surrounding the moon as they rushed forward to protect the youth. The one charging at the very front was naturally that big dog. Its entire body was dark red, as if it had been fighting all year round and bathed in the blood of all kinds of beasts, causing its fur to be blood red. This 4-meter-tall dog brought about a gale when it ran, sending sand and stones flying. There was a strong smell of blood in the air. Chu Feng's face revealed a cold expression. He originally had no enmity with this youth, but the other party had stolen his fortune and even wanted to let the dog injure him. Red Lion, bite him ruthlessly and tear him to pieces. The youth shouted from behind with a cold smile on his face. He gave the order without a care, wanting this tall and fierce dog to tear the child at the edge of the sky crater to pieces. His kind of words and that kind of cold expression showed how cruel he was. He had no regard for life and didn't care about this matter at all. It was as if he was hunting in the forest. Roar! After the big dog heard this, its evil aura became even stronger, and its roar was like thunder. It became increasingly ferocious, and the dark red fur on its body stood up, revealing its snow-white fangs. Ha ha! Behind, the group of people didn't care at all and had no sympathy. They watched a young child about to be killed and a big dog that was as tall as a house pouncing over. They were all laughing loudly, taking pleasure in it. Chu Feng dodged with a swoosh and didn't immediately retaliate. He was more concerned about the powerful evolver among the group of people. It was a big problem, and this big dog's mouth was full of the smell of blood. It let out a fierce bark like thunder and leaped over. "Haha, Red Lion, be more agile. You can't even pounce on a child? You dare to kill a mountain flood dragon, a vicious beast that massacred an entire village. Don't be so gentle." The people behind jeered and shouted loudly. Their words brought with them some cruel facts, ordering the fierce dog to move more swiftly. Chu Feng's eyes were sharp, and he dodged once again. Activating the geomagnetic gas, he grasped the profound magnetic energy contained in the terrain and started moving the stone coffin. Regardless of whether it was the dragon nest or the sky pit, they both belonged to the sky gore terrain. They contained a large number of magnetic stones and even a lot of magnetic marrow. This kind of terrain could be used by Chu Feng. Roar! As the dark red hound roared, it leapt more than 10 meters away, bringing with it a strong gust of wind and a fishy smell as it rushed nearby. Along the way, some trees were broken by it, and some rocks were cracked by its thick claws, sending soil and rocks flying in all directions. Such a small body, but its movements are quite agile. However, it is still not enough to fill the gaps between the red lion's teeth. One swipe of its claws, and it will become a meat patty. There were people in the back who teased them. It was as if a human tragedy was about to unfold, yet they were all full of enthusiasm and excitement. They were naturally cruel. Buzz! Chu Feng borrowed the help of the geomagnetic energy and utilized an extremely profound domain technique to move the stone coffin through the air. Then he suddenly swatted it toward the pouncing dog. If not for the fact that he was too young and his own strength was limited, he would have been able to use this kind of terrain to execute a killing technique. Roar! This vicious hound's foot-long red fur danced in the wind, and it became increasingly ferocious. It leapt into the air and swooped down toward Chu Feng. Its body was exceptionally strong, and it was covered in bulging muscles. It had a square head and big ears, and when it opened its scarlet mouth, it revealed its white fangs and emitted a dense killing intent. Bang! At this moment, the stone coffin seemed to have been grabbed by an invisible hand and swung. With a boom, it smashed into the air and smashed onto the vicious hound's body, giving it a solid hit. This vicious hound was immediately smashed into a bloody mess in midair. It let out a blood-curdling screech after being smashed by a tremendous force. Its spine was broken, and a large piece of its fur fell off. How hard was the stone coffin's material? Following which, the large hound howled and whimpered. It was overflowing with ferocity just a moment ago, but now, even its tail was tucked between its legs as it struggled with all its might. However, during the process of being smashed into the ground by the stone coffin, the blood in its body surged violently, and its body rapidly became thinner and weaker. Take it easy. Chu Feng secretly transmitted his voice. He was afraid that his resentful second brother would go too crazy and cause the scene to be too bloody and frightening. Bang! The large hound didn't move after falling to the ground. Its body was covered in blood, which flowed all over the ground. It had suffered 2 heavy blows in succession, and its spine and skull were broken. It had died a miserable death. You're courting death. You dare to kill my beloved hound? Kill him for me. The youth sitting on a mount that was shaped like a celestial horse and covered in scarlet scales ordered. His face was as calm as water, and his eyes were gloomy and cold. He also drew his large bow, knocked an iron arrow, and shot forward. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One figure after another pounced forward. Their movements were vigorous, and every one of them was very strong. Dang! Chu Feng dodged and used the stone coffin to block the iron arrow. With a bang, the iron arrow exploded and turned into iron powder. How could it possibly shake the stone coffin? Heavens! Is this the heavenly gold stone? It's a kind of rare material that can be used to refine celestial venerable level secret treasures. Heavens! This is the most sacred of artifacts. I can't believe I've actually seen such a large piece here. Someone used it to make a coffin. What a waste! An old man with a head full of small braids behind him shouted, incomparably excited. At the same time, he was also emitting a divine radiance. It originated from an earthen jar in his hand, and a misty, holy radiance was emitted from within. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 6 or 7 people rushed over together with cold, killing intent. Each of them stretched out their large hands to grab at Chu Feng. They wanted nothing more than to slap him to death. "All of you, get out of the way!" In the back, the old man with a head full of braids shouted. He stared at the stone coffin with a fiery gaze. And this time, Chu Feng activated the geomagnetic energy to wrap around the stone coffin. He resolutely and decisively flipped over Heaven Abyss and jumped down just like that. "Don't make a sound," Chu Feng transmitted his voice. Otherwise, he was afraid that the 9 Netherworld spirit would cry out. In reality, the 9 Netherworld spirit was simply frightened out of its wits. It didn't want to enter Een Manor again. "Come back here and leave behind the supreme treasure." The old man used a secret technique. His palms and fingers shone as he made a move towards the bottom of Heaven Abyss to restrain the stone coffin. In reality, the one Chu Feng was most apprehensive about was this old man. He felt the aura of divinity on his body, and later on, he discovered that it came from the earthen jar in his hand, so he relaxed a little. Now, Chu Feng was extremely cooperative and threw the stone coffin out of the natural pit. Swoosh! The stone coffin rushed up and was caught by the old man's green energy hand, restraining it in front of his eyes. "Ha! It really is the heavenly gold stone. This is a peerless refining material and a rare treasure. If it was made into a medicine refining furnace, the effects would be the best. Today, I should obtain this great fortune and have a chance of becoming a saint." The old man laughed heartily, feeling very satisfied. Chu Feng immediately hid in the stone jar, afraid of being captured by the old man. He was even prepared to use his previous life's Tao fruit, but he discovered that the old man was too excited and only had eyes for the stone coffin. At the same time, he understood that he had overestimated the other party's strength. The old man was only a half-saint, and all the oddities originated from the aura emitted by the earthen jar in his hand. On this land, even half-saints couldn't leave the ground or fly. 6th Grandpa. This coffin is actually a rare treasure. The youth sitting on the red-scaled beast was astonished. He narrowed his eyes and revealed 2 rays of light. He also wanted to take away a portion of the material. The others also gathered and looked at the stone coffin. The stone coffin was silent and didn't move. Naturally, the 9 underworlds was especially cooperative. It was greedier than anyone else and couldn't wait to suck everyone's blood dry. It was waiting for everyone to come closer. Otherwise, when dealing with that big dog, it wouldn't have let its blood flow all over the ground, but would have sucked it all away. Everything was done to avoid being exposed and frightening others. Look, the patterns on this stone coffin are complicated and exquisite. One look, and you can tell that it's the work of a famous master. It contains a very shocking Tao rhythm. Just these carvings are treasures. Oh, I wonder if there are other treasures in this coffin, because this is definitely not something that ordinary people can use. When they were alive, they were at least celestial venerables. The old man, with a head full of braids, said with a trembling voice. He was incomparably excited. Perhaps this was the greatest fortune of his life. "I have a premonition that this is a peerless fortune," he said with a trembling voice. The stone coffin was silent, and the 9 underworlds didn't act out. He wanted to wait for these people to wake up a bit, and then find Chu Feng. It would be best if he could get rid of his sworn brother. Chu Feng waited for a moment and listened to those people's endless chatter. His reaction was sharp, and he immediately felt that something wasn't right. According to the 9 underworlds' grandson's personality, how could he be so merciful and not take action? Was he trying to trick him? Go find that youth and capture him alive. Sure enough, the old man spoke. That youth sneered and said, "Tear off one of his arms, break 2 of his legs, and then bring him over. I believe that he didn't commit suicide in the natural crater and is only hiding under the stone cliff. Idiots, there's a vicious creature in the coffin in your hands. Hurry up and throw it away." In the distance, Chu Feng shouted loudly, forcing the 9 underworlds to quickly take action. The people present were all stunned, but they all reacted quickly. Some directly retreated with lightning speed, and there were others who sneered in disdain. They were extremely calm and didn't believe him at all, thinking that he was swindling them. However, the 9 underworlds himself had to believe him. He immediately became anxious. How could he tolerate the prey that was already in his hands running away? He was scared of losing everything. It exploded, and a terrifying bloody mist soared. The area within a radius of 3 zhang was enveloped, and this area immediately became like a dark underworld. Miserable cries rose and fell. That half-saint was the most miserable, bearing the brunt of it all. Just now, his face was still full of smiles, saying that this was the greatest opportunity of his life. In the end, his smile froze there. Before it could disappear, his body began to shrivel up, and in a split second, he was only skin and bones. Those people also cried out miserably and struggled with all their might. Only a few of them managed to break free, but they were already emaciated. Their entire bodies seemed to have aged several thousand years as they fell not far away. These were the people who reacted rather quickly and rushed out after hearing Chu Feng's warning. They escaped from the forbidden land of death within a radius of 3 zhang. Meanwhile, those who were calm and disdainful were all stuck to the stone coffin. The 9 underworlds was dissatisfied and said, "Sworn brother, what is the meaning of this? Interfering with my collection of the spiritual blood of all living things. Are we still good brothers? Can we still travel the world with our swords? You're the one complaining first. Just now, you didn't make a move. Were you trying to borrow someone else's hand to kill me?" With a rumble, Chu Feng activated the geomagnetic energy and shook the stone coffin. Crackling sounds rang out as dried corpses fell to the ground. He was practically snatching food from a tiger's mouth. The 9 underworlds was furious and shouted, "What are you doing? These are all my food. You're too disloyal." That youth didn't die, but his temples were already grizzled at such a young age. It was unknown how much life potential he had been deprived of. Even his bones could be seen through his loose skin. He was very weak as he collapsed beside his mount, the red-scaled beast. The old man with a head full of braids died. Although he was the strongest and a half-saint, he died the most miserably. The ground was littered with dried corpses. In the end, only 4 people survived, and they were all extremely weak. How boring. I thought that this divine king would have to personally take action. In the end, I didn't expect that I couldn't even stop my second brother from opening his mouth and inhaling. *T divine king. The 9 underworlds was the most disdainful and didn't believe it at all. Chu Feng walked over and, with a bang, sent the youth flying with a kick. Chapter 1065. Not long ago, this youth was domineering, disregarding the lives and deaths of ordinary people, ordering the mastiff to tear apart Chu Feng. He sat on the dragon-scaled beast as he watched, finding joy in this. Yet now, his temples were grizzled, crying bitterly, begging Chu Feng to let him go. The contrast between before and after was too great. Why is there a need to do this? Chu Feng looked at him, feeling quite disgusted. This youth bullied others with his power, cruel and domineering, changing from arrogance to deference. Now, the contrast was too great. No matter how low his stance was, it was still difficult for others to feel sympathy, only more and more loathing. "Spare me. I'm willing to give you a piece of news. There's a great opportunity in Desolate Border's Black Domain Forest. Soon, something that will shake up the world of the living is going to happen." The youth was all skin and bones. He knelt on the ground, quietly explaining to Chu Feng. Chu Feng sneered. No matter how great the opportunity was, could it compare to the dragon nest from a few years ago? What kind of place did he treat Desolate Border as? Did he really think that every inch of the mountains and rivers was mysterious, that there was another world? It's true. Have you heard of reincarnation hunters? The youth's voice was weak. He struggled to take a step forward, saying this with a low voice. However, even though his voice wasn't loud, in Chu Feng's ears, it was like thunder. He actually mentioned this title, making his heart surge. "Kill." Right at this time, the youth erupted with power, his originally dim and sunken eyes releasing a sinister radiance. His skin and bones palm was sparkling and translucent like jade, sending a palm towards Chu Feng. This was the mysterious jade palm. Pooh! Bloody radiance erupted. An arm flew out, accompanied by a miserable scream. That youth left as quickly as he came, staggering backwards, falling onto the ground. However, he was only skin and bones, not even blood flowing out from his wound. Chu Feng stood in place, in his hands a mother gold dagger. It was bright red and sparkling, stars, black holes, and other patterns appearing on its surface. This was his spoils of war, obtained after defeating the extreme martial lineage's inheritor in the dragon nest. He had never used it before. Today was the first time he used it. Why don't you weigh your own capabilities first? How dare you plot against this godly king? When yours truly was roaming the universe, you were still wearing diapers. The young man wanted to vomit blood after hearing this. Half of it was because he was injured, and the other half was because he was angry. However, in the end, he coughed violently, and only a few streaks of blood appeared at the corner of his mouth. Young master, the three at the back were also loyal. They had aged for thousands of years, but they crawled up with great difficulty, wanting to fight against Chu Feng. I'll give you a quick death, Chu Feng said. He raised his sword, and 3 heads flew out. He didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy or pity, because none of these people were good people. Not long ago, when they saw the vicious dog about to tear apart a child, they were all laughing loudly, exceptionally cold-blooded. Letting such a person go was tantamount to condoning a murderer and harming others. What a delicious meal. It's such a waste. Give it to me. The 9 nether sighed. Chu Feng said, I'll leave this young man to you. Don't kill him right away. I want to know if he really has some secret or a great opportunity. He kicked the one-armed young man and sent him flying, landing in front of the stone coffin. The young man was very decisive. He was ruthless to others and also extremely ruthless to himself. He suddenly took out a dagger and stabbed at the space between his brows. It'll be hard for you to die, even if you want to. The 9 nether spoke sinisterly. No matter how kind, majestic, and radiant this kind of creature was when it was alive, once it crawled out of the manor of hell, it would be considered a different species. It would become savage, sinister, and sinister with terrifying methods. Even if it was an unrivaled hero when it was alive, it would return as a 9 nether being after the long years of death. It was destined to represent evil. Comparatively speaking, this 9 nether being was a bit special and strange. It hadn't displayed a side that was too terrifying. The young man was sucked in by the stone coffin and couldn't stab down with his dagger. His body trembled violently, and then his expression distorted. He couldn't withstand the invasion of a kind of evil energy and confessed everything. I come from the north. I'm the young master of a small city. The city he was in couldn't even compare to a county town. It only had a population of 50,000, and it was adjacent to the tribes of the Great Wilderness. It could be considered a lawless region that bordered the desolate border. Chu Feng was shocked. This was a small city with a population of 50,000, yet its city lord was a saint. The Yang realm really wasn't simple. The Little Een realm couldn't compare to this place after all. It is indeed true. Reincarnation hunters have appeared, and their target is precisely the desolate border. The young man seemed to be talking in his sleep as he continuously spoke about the secrets in his heart. His father welcomed an esteemed guest, and it was actually a divine king. Meanwhile, that divine king was the disciple of a heavenly deity and was in charge of gathering information in the desolate border. Because he had friendly relations with the city lord's ancestor, he revealed a few secrets. Reincarnation hunters have appeared, and they were going to desolate border to carry out a hunt. When Chu Feng heard this, he sucked in a cold breath of air. He was extremely shocked when he first heard about reincarnation hunters in the Yang realm. Were they finally going to appear today? Dong Qing said that this type of creature was too mysterious and no one could see them. Now, there were people who secretly learned of their whereabouts. What did this signify? After my father learned of this secret information, he believed that this was a great opportunity and sent many people into the desolate border to investigate. Meanwhile, I was only pretending to hunt, but I was actually searching everywhere. What are you all looking for? Chu Feng asked. A great being who is in the final stages of decline. He is the target of the reincarnation hunters. When the young man spoke of this secret information, it left Chu Feng greatly shaken, as well as the 9 netherworlds beings horrified. Once that dying great being completely died, that meant that his cave would become an ownerless land. For the people of the outside world, this was a great opportunity. Why is it like this? Why would the reincarnation hunters target a creature that is about to die? Chu Feng was confused. In reality, he couldn't calm down at all. It was because he knew that in the depths of the desolate border, in a mountain ridge near Black Domain Forest, there really was a dying great being sleeping. Back then, he had even personally experienced that dream. It was extremely terrifying. That year, there was also a divine king-level heavenly genius named Ji Kai-Xian, as well as a white-haired youngster Li Jiuxiao, whose entire body was drenched by Chu Feng's rain for an entire season. They both personally experienced that great being's terrifying dream, almost dying. Did the reincarnation hunters come for this great being? What was the reason? According to reports, the great being hibernating in the depths of the desolate border burned 3 special talismans in succession to communicate with reincarnation. He wants to reincarnate in the world of the living and directly be reborn. The young man actually spoke of such a shocking secret. Chu Feng was dumbfounded, and even the 9 netherworlds beings were greatly shaken. Could it be that he could directly reincarnate in the world of the living and didn't need to go to the land of reincarnation? How was that possible? He didn't even need to take a trip to the road of reincarnation? Chu Feng was shocked. He couldn't believe it no matter what. There was a ruthless fellow living in this desolate land, and he wanted to go against the heavens? The 9 netherworlds beings said with a trembling voice, "Impossible. No one can succeed like this." Back then, in the evolutionary history I was in, no one could directly reincarnate in the world of the living. He must go on the road of reincarnation. What I was talking about was naturally prehistoric times. It was too far away from today. In other words, there is indeed such a possibility. There is such a method? Asked Chu Feng. The 9 netherworlds beings said, "It's only a legend, but it's impossible to succeed." How deep is the water on the road of reincarnation? Even the fierce person who unified 1/20th of the world of the living had lamented that no one could avoid the land of reincarnation. He said that the water on the road of reincarnation was too deep, and if they knew the truth, they could scare a celestial venerable to death. When Chu Feng heard this, he felt a chill down his back. At the same time, he revealed a doubtful expression and said, "You're a 9 netherworlds being. How can you still remember what happened when you were alive?" Cough. I only remember one thing. I'm a bit special. The 9 netherworlds being shut up. The young man couldn't help but say everything he needed to say in his days. Chu Feng flicked out a beam of divine light from a distance and pierced the space between his brows, giving him a quick death and ending his life. This matter isn't simple. If things aren't handled well, the heavens will be overturned and the world of the living will be thrown into chaos. Chu Feng muttered to himself with a heavy heart. 4.5 years had passed, and bloody light overflowed into the heavens from Harmony Province. It covered the boundless territories, and a bloody mist enveloped the vast great wasteland. It made the people of the outside world tremble in fear, and they didn't dare to approach. Everyone in the world was looking at Harmony Province, and they didn't know when that being would completely revive and come out. And now, reincarnation hunters had appeared in the desolate U Province, and they wanted to target a supreme being that was on the verge of death. As expected, the world was going to be thrown into chaos. There's a problem here. What qualifications does a little city lord have to know about this matter? Even that divine king doesn't have the qualifications. There's definitely something hidden here. The 9 netherworlds being in the stone coffin spoke. He believed that there was something going on here. Did the reincarnation hunters come on their own, or did someone purposely lead them here? Even if it's just capturing a supreme being on the verge of death, it's still a world-shaking matter. To dare to involve this level, the person involved must be very courageous. This pond is a bit muddy, and it's also somewhat terrifying and dangerous. I really want to return to Heaven's Pit to hide for a period of time. The nine netherworlds being muttered to himself and said a bunch of words. He was very afraid. Chu Feng placed his small hands behind his back and said, "Second brother, we agreed to travel the world with our swords. Could it be that you still want to return to Een Manor alone? However, I won't force you. How about I personally send you back? I won't go back even if you beat me to death." The nine netherworlds being shook his head with force. He shuddered when he recalled the experience underground, and he didn't want to experience it again. Suddenly, he thought of another possibility and said, could it be that the so-called reincarnators are heading for Een Manor? Then all the more I can't go back. Since that's the case, second brother, you should go and have a good rest. Chu Feng finished speaking and quickly set up a teleportation domain. He blasted the nine netherworlds into it and directly sent it away. "Ah, where are you sending me?" Before disappearing, he let out a loud cry and felt his blood run cold. Could it be that this little bastard violated the agreement and wanted to kill him? "I'm sending you back to your hometown," said Chu Feng. "What? The nine netherworlds was in despair and shouted loudly. However, in an instant, the stone coffin smashed down from the void and landed on top of a mountain. This isn't Een Manor's hometown. You scared your grandpa to death. Damned little bastard, this is Lightning Strike Mountain." This evil creature. He was incomparably angry, and his heart was filled with hatred. In the end, that little bastard sent him back to the forbidden land of imprisonment, the Lightning Strike Mountain where the Divine Temple's fairy had trapped him. "You should rest here first. When I'm about to bid farewell to this desolate land, I'll come and find you. We'll go on our way together." Chu Feng came to see him and then quickly left. He really wanted to stay in the desolate border for a period of time. Whether or not reincarnation hunters would appear, he would have to wait for a period of time. Chu Feng felt that after more than 4 years, he couldn't sense the slightest bit of reincarnation information from his body, so he wasn't worried about himself. Especially after drinking Grandma Meng's soup, he felt that the smell of the Divine Temple's fairy on his body had completely disappeared. This made him feel even more at ease. However, 8 days later, something unexpected still happened. Shocking changes happening. 2 creatures descended from the sky and landed on the short mountain behind the Ji clan's tribe. There was no other thought in Chu Feng's mind. While feeling horrified, he immediately thought that these should be reincarnation hunters. Chapter 1066. These were 2 strange and demonic creatures that descended from the sky. They cried out in midair, causing Chu Feng to immediately feel his soul darken. His entire person almost fell to the ground. What was this? Were the so-called reincarnation hunters like this? In a split second, Chu Feng's body tensed up. The cells all over his body seemed to have condensed into a steel plate. He found it hard to believe. A single cry actually made his multicolored soul light turn jet black in a split second. Although he returned to normal in a split second, it still made him indescribably shaken and his heart palpitate. What kind of situation was this? "You didn't fall. You're not a reincarnator." A hoarse voice came from midair. It was aged and carried a metallic trill as if 2 iron plates were rubbing against each other. This cry was actually aimed at reincarnators? Chu Feng was flabbergasted. He didn't know why, but he withstood it and wasn't injured. The 2 creatures slowly descended. Their appearances were different, and they were rather odd. In particular, their statures were extremely short. They weren't even worth mentioning when compared to the frightening figures he had imagined. One of the creatures was over a meter tall. Its body was like a shriveled gecko, and even its skin was like this. It was ashy, and as for its head, it was the head of an aged man. From head to tail, it was dull and lusterless. Moreover, it was as thin as firewood. It didn't have any mighty temperament to speak of. However, it was dangerous and would frighten people just by looking at it. Chu Feng sensed the aura of reincarnation. It was similar to some kind of pervasive energy on the reincarnation path. The other creature was only over a meter long. It was a black fox, but its mouth was shaped like an eagle's beak. The bird's beak was curved and scarlet like blood. It contrasted strongly with its black body. Moreover, there was a vertical eye between its brows. It was dim and lightless. As a whole, it looked like a three-eyed, eagle-beaked black fox. The two creatures had something in common. They were shriveled and short, their skin wrapped around their bones. Their eye sockets were sunken, and they looked like they were about to rot. After this creature landed on the short mountain, it didn't say a word and directly entered the divine temple to search. Was it coming for the young lady Dong Qing was following? Chu Feng was convinced that these two creatures were related to reincarnation. They made him think of some creatures and some kind of weapon. They were too similar. Only these two creatures were especially terrifying, intimidating. Similarly, they were all skin and bones. They looked like they were rotting or even rotten. However, the ones he had seen before were humanoid, while these two were aliens. Soldiers in tattered armor on the path of reincarnation. His heart was in turmoil as he thought of many things. Those soldiers all carried standard weapons on their backs, some saw knives. They were like the living dead, their bodies decaying. No one knew how long they had been here. Maybe millions of years, maybe hundreds of millions of years, or maybe they didn't belong to this part of history. They guarded the path of reincarnation, mechanically maintaining the order on the path, but their souls seemed to have died a long time ago. Chu Feng was shocked and horrified. This was the aura of a creature on the path of reincarnation. How did it transmit to the world of the living? After such a long time, he had gradually forgotten about the creatures on the path of reincarnation. Now that he saw the hunter, this memory was evoked, and he felt that it was unimaginable. Regardless of whether it was celestial venerable stone fox, his master from the world of the living, the 9 netherworlds, or even that terrifying creature from prehistoric times who had unified 1/20th of the world of the living, they all said that the waters of the path of reincarnation were too deep. Before this, Chu Feng had only listened. Although he was moved, he didn't have much direct experience. Now, he deeply experienced it. The person who had set up the path of reincarnation had long since extended his hands into the world of the living. Were these so-called reincarnation hunters serving him? This was truly somewhat terrifying. Previously, he had thought that the path of reincarnation was isolated. He had never connected it with other places or a certain period of time. But now, how could it be an isolated place? It had a close connection with the world of the living and had coexisted with time for a long time. The source was unknown. From the lesser netherworld to the world of the living, or even the greater netherworld, it could all involve the path of reincarnation. From the prehistoric era of the 9 netherworlds to the current world, reincarnation existed. All of this was inseparable and didn't exist alone. For a moment, Chu Feng's body went slightly cold. Then, he felt a bone-piercing chill. The level involved and the creature behind the scenes were truly too terrifying. What kind of person and creature could actually live for so long and control all of this? However, among the known races and evolvers in the world, such a person shouldn't exist at all. From ancient times until now, no one could avoid death. In the end, they would return to dust and decay. Some creatures and ultimate evolvers lived for a long time because they were hibernating and used the terrain of the mountains and rivers to nourish themselves. They were usually in deep sleep to reduce their consumption as much as possible. That was why they seemed to live for a frighteningly long time, but in the end they would still die. According to rumors, the reason why the famous mountains and rivers of the world of the living were so magnificent and earth-shattering was related to these people dying underground. Why could the so-called earth-shattering terrain kill evolvers? Even celestial venerables might die if they entered. How could pure mountains and rivers kill people? Even if the terrain of the mountains was strange and the huge amount of energy guided by the magnetic field, it shouldn't be like this and couldn't kill gods. The main reason was that after the ultimate powerhouses hibernated and fell into deep sleep, they would finally die underground. Their bodies would melt and form a terrifying terrain that shook the famous mountains and rivers of the world of the living. It was only after they fused with the Tao and became one with the earth that it formed a dangerous land that could kill people. Chu Feng's thoughts scattered as he thought of many things. His heart couldn't calm down for a long time. Since there were no undying creatures, all evolvers would die in the end. But who were these hunters serving? Could the mastermind behind the scenes really live for so long? He didn't quite believe it. Even if it was an organization, it spanned the present world and even prehistoric times. It wasn't a branch of an evolutionary civilization and spanned the past and present. It was too frightening. Moreover, Chu Feng didn't believe an organization could be so strict and be preserved consistently. As long as the founder died, such a huge inheritance would definitely cause disputes among the various successors. It's a bit strange and terrifying. The land of reincarnation has existed for a long time. There's an invisible hand controlling it, watching coldly in the darkness. It's too frightening. Chu Feng thought to himself. He had thought of too many things. He even thought of celestial venerable stone fox's reminder and his personal experience on the road of reincarnation. There were clearly great battles on that ancient road. There were traces of bitter battles. This meant that an intense game had been involved. No one party could control everything. There was no need to fear those who could challenge the mastermind behind the scenes. Moreover, it didn't seem to be one or two people or two parties. The more Chu Feng thought about it, the more he felt that the depth of this pond was frightening. Chu Feng sighed. As he slowly understood, he had some answers in his heart. He gradually understood why celestial venerable stone fox, the 9 netherworlds, and the super powerhouses of prehistoric times revered the land of reincarnation. The truth behind this was really frightening. However, it was so hazy. From ancient times until now, it had been wrapped in a layer of dense fog. No one could see the truth. Soon after, Chu Feng thought of his experience in the foreign realm. When he returned, he had used the stone box to sneak in. He had seen a large monitoring something between the walls of the universe. At the same time, on the way back, he had seen a group of prehistoric giants in the void between the serene realm and the foreign realm. They were shockingly tall, comparable to planets. They also had the aura of reincarnation and even carried reincarnation blades on their backs. They were all gods and devils. They were opening up a path that led to who knew where. Some of them were numb, like walking corpses, while others were passionate and stirring. Just where were they going? What kind of path were they looking for? Chu Feng thought about it again and again. Reincarnation had traversed too many years. It wasn't in the history of evolution. The source was shrouded in layers of fog. It was also strange and terrifying. He could only sigh. Right now, he was still far from that level. He could only speculate that while laughing in the world of mortals on the surface, he was secretly accumulating power. Only when he got revenge one day might he have a chance to uncover some of the mysteries. If he became stronger, he might even have a chance of participating. There are no traces of reincarnation. It seems like the information we received was wrong. 2 creatures walked out from the temple, their voices aged. In reality, they were quite old-fashioned, not attaching much importance to this place. Their main targets were the powerful beings in the depths of Desolate Border. We're going to hunt down that powerful being. So. They tore through the air, their speed just too fast. Chu Feng found it hard to calm down. These 2 creatures seemed to be mechanically obeying some type of order. They weren't nimble enough, not paying much attention to this place. Inside the temple, ever since that fairy statue, as well as her magical body, was moved away, this place became ordinary, no longer having the atmosphere of the past. This was why those 2 creatures didn't receive any benefits, not sensing anything at all. Something big is going to happen in the end. They're going to hunt down a dying, powerful being. However, even though these 2 creatures are strong, I didn't sense that type of terrifying energy. Chu Feng was doubtful. Could these 2 creatures really kill a dying, powerful being? He even felt that they couldn't even kill a celestial venerable. They hadn't reached that level yet. Only, he still felt that it was dangerous. Perhaps it's just an innate nemesis, and they have special methods? Chu Feng's cry not too long ago was truly terrifying. It made his soul light turn pitch black in an instant. He decided that he needed to research it for a bit and train his soul light in a targeted manner in the future to prevent this kind of thing from happening again in the future. If that dying powerful being dies and is killed by the reincarnation hunters, the residents he left behind will really cause a huge commotion. It will be even more astonishing than a dragon's nest. However, Chu Feng always felt that there was something going on here. It wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. Who was sending a letter to the reincarnation hunters and guiding them here? Weren't some clans and great powers in the Yang realm too terrifying? There were people who could come into contact with existences on the reincarnation path. Or could it be that the existences behind the reincarnation path originally resided in the Yang realm? Chu Feng thought an old friend, young lady Shi. Was she doing well after returning to the Yang realm? Back then, young lady Shi had once said that she had seen a standard reincarnation blade in the Yang realm. It might belong to a certain clan or even power. Looks like I have to leave the desolate border as soon as possible. I really have to travel the world with my sword and improve myself as quickly as possible. I can find old friends along the way and understand more. Chapter 1067. Chu Feng pondered for a while in the Divine Temple and decided to make preparations as soon as possible. He decided to rush to Mount Lightning Strike to have a chat with the 9th Netherworld Spirit. Mount Lightning Strike wasn't far, so it didn't take long for Chu Feng to arrive. He walked through the sealed area and approached the mountain peak. His body immediately tensed up. He actually saw those two creatures. They had discovered the reincarnation hunters. They stood at the top of the mountain. One was a three-eyed eagle-beaked black fox, and the other was a lizard with a human head. They were only 2 to 3 feet tall, and their temperaments were strange and frightening. What surprised Chu Feng was that one of them was standing on the stone coffin and had been sucked onto it. Was this really a case of a malicious spirit meeting an evil spirit? Chu Feng was fairly astonished. The 9th Netherworld Spirit dared to attack a reincarnation hunter? It was too daring. I'll suck and drink your blood dry, huh? The 9th Netherworld Spirit's aged voice came from the stone coffin, filled with conceit and delight. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. The 9th Netherworld Spirit was too savage. It actually dared to do this and crazily suck the blood essence of a reincarnation hunter. It was incomparably valiant. What the hell are you? How come there's no blood? Very soon, the 9th Netherworld Spirit shouted anxiously. It felt that the situation wasn't right. It couldn't suck a single drop of blood at all. Chu Feng was anxious for it, and also felt a chill. Reincarnation hunters were almost as rotten as the soldiers on the reincarnation path. They were all skin and bones, so how could there be any blood left? But even so, this wasn't the reason why it was spared. It was naturally because of its special constitution and its own extraordinary nature. Wait, why can't I even absorb soul power? The 9th Netherworld Spirit said with a trembling voice. It already had a premonition that it had kicked an iron plate. A cry rang out from the reincarnation hunter standing on the coffin. The cry was too terrifying and incomparably miserable. The 9th Netherworld Spirit growled as if it was in great pain. You're quite daring to attack a reincarnation hunter. The hunter with a human head and a lizard body stood on the coffin. His voice was also very aged and cold. What? Reincarnation hunters look like you? The 9th Nether shouted. It was obvious that this was the first time he had seen them. There was clearly something wrong with its voice. It was trembling, and there was a strong sense of unease. What exactly was it doing? He actually wanted to suck the blood of a reincarnation hunter. Chu Feng had never imagined that a 9th hell that was renowned for its ferocity, ruthlessness would actually be afraid, and it was rather surprising to him that it carried fear. Tell me everything you've done in your life. The 2-foot-long, 3-eyed, eagle-beaked black fox said. It stood at the top of the mountain, looking at the sarcophagus. Don't hunters only target living beings who don't follow the rules of reincarnation and come out with memories? Those are all creatures with astonishing origins. They have nothing to do with me. I didn't try to force my way through samsara. The nine netherworld deity couldn't even speak fluently. It was rare for it to be frightened, and it wasn't used to all sorts of things. Speak your various sins. The reincarnation hunter with a human head and a lizard body stood on the sarcophagus. It lowered its head and looked down as if it wanted to see through the sarcophagus. The ninth nether refused to admit its sins, but it let out another cry. It seemed to be scared and said in a trembling voice, "Let's talk. I'll tell you everything I know." Chu Feng watched from afar. Even though he knew that the two hunters had discovered him, he wasn't worried and only watched with great interest. When I was 3 years old, I could beat up my senior brother. When I was 4 years old, I peeked at my senior sister bathing. When I was 5 years old, I snuck up on my senior sister. In the distance, Chu Feng was speechless. What kind of old things were these? How could it remember them so clearly? Was it still a ninth nether hunter? It was definitely deliberately diverting the attention. After I became famous, I beat up my senior uncle 3 times and stole a gourd of true dragonbone medicinal wine from my master. After drinking it, I fed him a gourd of black chicken bone blood wine. After my sworn brother married the third most beautiful woman in the Yang realm, I tried to steal the first most beautiful woman in the Yang realm, but I didn't succeed. Instead, I was beaten up. Chu Feng was dumbfounded. How many unreliable things had this scoundrel done? It was really shameless and even revealed it. At the same time, he was also speechless. This guy had been talking for an hour and hadn't finished yet. It had only talked from childhood to middle age. Chu Feng simply sat on a rock and listened. He saw more and more of its crimes and evil deeds. Shut up. You've done too many evil deeds. Do you want to talk for a day and a night? Even the reincarnation hunter couldn't stand it anymore and began to berate it. Even though it wasn't a heinous crime, it had done all kinds of shameful things since it was a child. There were big and small crimes that it had committed, and it was endless. If it continued like this, it wouldn't be finished even if it talked for several days and nights. You haven't said the biggest evil deed yet? The reincarnation hunter with a human head and a lizard body shouted. The nine nether spirit hesitated for a while and said, "I chopped down the heavenly, profound, ancient tree to make a coffin for myself. I hope to revive and live for a few more eras." What? You bastard, you chopped down the fourth most precious tree in the Yang realm. This is a case without a clue. It's actually you. Obviously, the reincarnation hunter, who was mechanically old-fashioned and had a withered soul, was furious. He was incomparably shocked and wanted to skin him alive. The nine nether spirits shouted, "Emissary, listen to my explanation. Even though I chopped down the heavenly, profound, ancient tree, I didn't make it into a coffin. It was stolen by someone and fell into the hands of a Taoist priest who was 100 times more shameless than me. I wanted to chop him into pieces, so I had to find another heavenly golden stone to make a coffin. The effect was dozens of times worse." The hunter angrily rebuked, "That's not the point. I don't care whose hand your coffin fell into. I hate you for destroying the heavenly, profound, ancient tree. You're a sinner through the ages. Do you know how important it is? It will affect the Yang realm. Jinnu, this isn't something we should care about. After becoming a reincarnation hunter, our identities are no longer the same. We've severed our ties with the past. Now, we only have one mission, and that is to hunt down the reincarnation challengers." The hunter's voice was hoarse and no longer mechanical. Some kind of consciousness was recovering. The nine nether spirits said, "You too. I swear that I didn't kill the fourth most precious, heavenly, profound, ancient tree. Moreover, I can't kill the primal chaos root that has existed since ancient times. I hid it somewhere." Chu Feng, who was nearby, heard everything clearly and became spirited. This bastard actually hid the fourth most precious tree in the Yang realm. It was really unexpected. "Speak. What other evil deeds have you done?" The reincarnation hunter shouted. "I even tore off half a branch of the ancient tree of 7 treasures the fifth chaotic root in the world. However, I gave it to an old friend of the exiled immortal clan as a gift because he said he wanted to comprehend the wonderful seven treasures technique. The hunter shouted, "You! Why do you always attack the Yang Realm's supreme tree? Do you know what you're doing? You don't understand." The other hunter was very cold and said, "All right, stop talking nonsense. Your biggest sin is to force your way into the reincarnation. Tell us your real identity." "I'm a 9 nether spirit. How did I force my way into the reincarnation? Can a 9 nether spirit remember the past? I'm very special and different from the masses. I sealed myself in an ancient coffin, and only then did I retain a portion of my memories. If the heavenly profound ancient tree's coffin hadn't been stolen, my nirvana would have reached a higher level. My heart aches, I'm so angry. Stop talking nonsense. You're the Almighty who lives in the desolate border cosmos, right? You've always been plotting to enter the Yang realm." Chapter 1068. Chu Feng was flabbergasted and dumbfounded. This grandson hiding in the sarcophagus was an almighty? He had been playing dumb and pretending to be the most sinister and vicious 9 nether demon. He didn't feel good and felt too surprised. No matter what, he didn't expect that the powerhouse living in seclusion in the desolate border would be by his side. However, Chu Feng pondered for a while and felt that it wasn't possible. Before this, he had personally experienced the terrifying dream of the powerhouse who had already reached the end of his decline and was about to die. If not for the protection of the stone jar, his bones would have been rotten into slag. Not to mention him, even Ji Kai-Xian and Li Jiuxiao, the 2 heaven-bestowing divine kings in the Yang realm, almost died miserably. They circled the gates of hell and relied on the treasures bestowed by their ancestors to escape. I'm wrongly accused. How could I be him? I most likely had this kind of strength in my previous life, but what level of evolution am I at now? I'm far from it. The 9 nether demons shouted, and the sarcophagus shook as it protested agitatedly. Moreover, if I was a powerhouse, I wouldn't be afraid of the 2 of you getting angry. Why would I swallow my anger like this? According to my hot temper, I would have made a move long ago. You're saying that you want to make a move against us? The hunter with a human head and a gecko body stood on the sarcophagus and looked down. A glaring beam of light appeared in its hollow eyes, and thunder exploded in the void. The 9 nether demon tried to salvage the situation and said, "The 2 envoys have misunderstood. What I mean is that if I was a powerhouse, I would have killed that little bastard at the foot of the mountain long ago." Chu Feng was originally happily listening to him defend himself, but now his expression wasn't so good. The monster in the sarcophagus was indeed not a good person. Almost at the same time, the 9 nether demon and Chu Feng fought to open their mouths and slander each other. "Let me tell the 2 of you, the little bastard at the foot of the mountain is the most suspicious. He's still young, but he already has sores on his head and pus on the soles of his feet. He's rotten from head to toe. The 2 envoys, the grandson in the sarcophagus, is definitely a reincarnator. We have to interrogate him properly. The prehistoric evolver was resurrected in the sarcophagus, and his memories are all there. If he isn't a reincarnator, then who is? This is too heaven-defying and has realized a reincarnation in the sarcophagus." All of them shouted at the same time to trip each other up and kill each other with a borrowed knife. The 9 nether spirit retorted, "Little bastard, you want to kill me? You must be feeling guilty. After I died thousands of years ago, I turned into the 9 netherworlds and revived with my memories. It is only because this stone coffin has the imprint of my past life, recording everything. If you don't believe me, you can open the coffin and verify it." Chu Feng sneered and said, "I'm a genius. There are quite a number of freaks in the Yang realm who have such a performance. It's very normal, but you're the only one who reincarnated in the stone coffin, so there's definitely a problem. At the same time, you had people open the coffin because you wanted to escape, right? You were obviously harboring evil intentions and plotting something big. I suggest that we throw this coffin into the danger zone and destroy it on the spot." "All of you shut up," shouted a reincarnation hunter. The other hunter was incomparably cold. A few years ago, there was a great disturbance in the desolate border. Someone mistakenly entered the dream of a dying great being, and at the same time, the reincarnation, I captured it. At that moment, the great earth split open and a stone coffin appeared. It was clearly not someone who was about to die, but rather a cicada shedding its carapace. Chu Feng was moved. He sat on a rock and rubbed his temples, feeling a headache. Even he was a bit shaken. Could it be that the Nine Nether Spirit really was that great being? The Nine Nether Spirit cried out, "I've been wrongly accused. I won't take the blame for this. That grandson framed me, so he must have already deduced and predicted today's scene." Then it added, "That is a great being, especially in his later years. He can pry into the mysteries of heaven and predict his own fortune and misfortune. This is disturbing the great Tao and hiding the truth. He wants to treat me with suffering." At this time, the three-eyed eagle-beaked black fox suddenly sighed and said, "Once we become reincarnation slaves, we forget the worries of our past lives. And I shouldn't revive the thoughts of our past lives, or else we will instantly turn into dust. Everything should be done according to the rules." "Yes, I've thought too much." That human-headed lizard-body hunter spoke. His eyes were empty, no longer having luster. Those who don't fall after hearing the cry aren't those who have made it through reincarnation. A terrifying cry immediately erupted in this place. Chu Feng's soul light darkened, but he held on and didn't fall. The stone coffin trembled. The Nine Nether Spirit cried out, "I really am not that great being. I'll prove it to you guys." The coffin suddenly stood upright and jumped about here like a walking zombie. "Go, let's capture that expert who truly reincarnated with memories." Right at this time, an aged and apathetic voice sounded from the void. More than 10 creatures descended from the heavens. They were all grotesquely shaped and belonged to different races, but they also had similarities. They were all skin and bones, as if they were dried corpses. They were all reincarnation hunters. Together with the two on the ground, there were a total of 13 of them. The creature in the lead had a head of white hair and was extremely shriveled up. It was a humanoid creature with a pair of withered golden wings on its back. It led the group of hunters away. It was too fast, crossing through the void. A group of hunters entered the desolate border. Chu Feng's heart was heavy, but soon after, his attention shifted to the Nine Nether Spirit. This grandson wanted to harm him again. Of course, he automatically ignored the fact that he himself had previously slandered the Nine Nether Spirit. Nine Nether Spirit, to be more precise, it should be a great being who has lost all of his abilities, right? Chu Feng shouted. A rebuttal immediately sounded from the stone coffin. "What nonsense are you spouting? I am a Nine Nether Spirit. Don't frame me." Hearing the cry and being unharmed is enough to prove everything. You should have anticipated today's events, so you've long since made preparations. Chu Feng probed it. "I can't be bothered to speak too much with you. If this old man was a great being right now, I would slap a little brat like you to death with a single slap. That's because you're in a weak state. What are you blindly probing for? The timing doesn't match up at all. I feel it beneath me to speak too much with you. Old bastard, you dare harm me today? Pay up." Chu Feng shouted. Then, the earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The stone coffin rolled back and forth, accompanied by curses and berating sounds. Chu Feng interrogated it about the location of the world's fourth precious tree. He clearly heard that this Nine Nether Spirit had actually hidden the roots of the profound sky tree. After so many years had passed, it should have long recovered and grown into a supreme precious tree. Do you dare enter after being thrown into the world of the living's fourth danger zone? The Nine Nether Spirit mocked. Chu Feng said, "Today I saw my own weakness and want to quickly become stronger. I really want to investigate the secrets of the reincarnation hunters and the people behind them. Second brother, are you willing to reach the peak of the realm of evolution with me? Explore the world and realize the ultimate evolution? You're so mushy after a single disagreement. This old man is ashamed to be associated with you." The Nine Nether Spirit spoke in disdain. Chu Feng intimidated it and said, I'm giving you face, so don't not accept it. Be careful, or else I'll really throw you back in Ian Manor. All right, from today onwards, we'll travel the world together with our swords, said the Nine Nether Spirit. That day, in the depths of the desolate border, a world-shaking energy fluctuation erupted in the Black Domain forest. It shook violently several times, and resplendent radiance illuminated U Province's sky. Someone saw a group of reincarnation hunters taking action there. But very soon, everything in that area became quiet again. However, an extremely astonishing thing happened in Harmony Province. Bloody light surged and covered the boundless territory. That ancient existence that had revived released a roar that made even the hearts of heavenly deities go cold. The experts spying in secret couldn't help but cry out loudly, their eyes dripping with blood. Oh no, there's actually no one in the desolate border who forcefully charged into the cycle of reincarnation. Someone is just luring the tiger away from the mountain and sending away the hunters. Is this helping that person in Harmony Province succeed? That person in Harmony Province controlled 1/30th of the world of the living. Could it be that he's charging through reincarnation after reviving this time? Impossible. What's impossible? This person's soul light should have been imprisoned on the path of reincarnation. This time, he slaughtered his way out. Everyone's estimations before were wrong. That day, shocking news erupted in Harmony Province's vicinity. It was unknown just how many experts in the world began to pay attention to it. Everyone began to discuss spiritedly. Heavenly deities came out of seclusion and personally arrived outside Harmony Province. There were also great powers that revived and looked coldly at the distant mountains and rivers. Someone is courting death, actually daring to use Harmony Province's person as a shield to draw the attention of the outside world. He really doesn't know the difference between life and death. What is he charging through reincarnation? This is completely a serious case. He has always been living in the world of the living in Harmony Province. Okay? This time, there were great powers that personally spoke, shaking the world and revealing some truths. Harmony Province's ancient existence hadn't been destroyed back then and had always been alive, hiding under the famous mountains. This time, someone misled all sides and used him to draw attention. Truly quite daring, deceiving reincarnation hunters to go to the desolate border and then using Harmony Province's person as a shield. Today, someone is courting death, doing something that cannot see the light of day. That day, a few provinces in the world of the living were in turmoil. Many shocking news spread. Some ancient families are quite formidable, actually having a way to contact reincarnation hunters. Stirring up trouble like this, what exactly are they trying to hide? That day, even the ancestors of a few great evolutionary sects came out of seclusion. Meanwhile, there were some heavenly deities who didn't understand. Their expressions were incomparably grave, always feeling like this day was extremely strange. Someone seemed to be doing something great, deceiving reincarnation hunters and sending them away. What exactly is it that is worth taking this kind of risk, doing this randomly? In the end, the plan was revealed. In province in the Great Wasteland exploded, half of the province destroyed in a single day. Blood flowed like rivers. Countless creatures died. Gray mist overflowed into the heavens, covering the sun, moon, and stars. This was an unprecedentedly bitter great event. It shook up the boundless world of the living. No one expected that Een province would explode like a dam bursting, triggering great chaos and panic. Chapter 1069. Een province was in a great calamity. The people were plunged into misery and suffering. The young realm was greatly shaken, drawing the attention of the world as it engulfed the great wastelands. Half of Een province's territory was destroyed. Evil winds howled angrily in the following days. Ghosts wept and deities wept. At first, gray mist overflowed into the heavens, and then darkness enveloped the great earth. No scenery could be seen anymore. This was a shocking change. There were deities who went to investigate, entering deep into Een province, but in the end, they never returned. There were divine kings who set off for Een province. Those who saw him off watched him enter the darkness, and in the end, they heard his miserable cries. Then, there was no more movement. Half-step heavenly deities moved out, descending into Een province and spreading a piece of news. That place was an endless abyss. Cries and howls rang out incessantly, and then there was no more news. Those people also disappeared within. This triggered panic in the world. Then, there was news that heavenly deities entered, but in the end, their bodies were pitch black and blood flowed from their 7 apertures. They suffered an indescribably strange attack. Seal off Een province. All domain heavenly masters take action together. That day, the powerhouse who had slept for endless years emerged. His stooped body personally walked out from the famous mountains and great rivers. He commanded the heavenly masters and invited his old friends to come out and seal Een province together. Such a great event actually happened. No one expected it. It was sudden and indescribable. In the end, Een province was sealed off, and no one could enter again. No one knew why it suddenly exploded. The powerhouse appeared and sealed off Een province. It became more and more confusing, and it was also extremely terrifying. This type of great disaster hadn't been seen for many years. People couldn't help but think of the Black Blood calamity. Back then, there were also great provinces that turned into dangerous lands, becoming a land of disaster. However, that was something from extremely ancient era. Apart from the heavenly deities and evolved beings who had lived for a long time, no one had experienced it before. It's actually Een province. How ruthless. The land within millions and millions of li has sunk, becoming a land of death. From then on, not a blade of grass will grow, rotten blood will evaporate. They actually did such a destructive thing. That day, someone stood outside Een province, gazing into the darkness. His voice was cold and filled with anger. His eyes turned into golden symbols. 2 beams of light flew out, illuminating the terrifying darkness and revealing some truths. At the center of the entire Een province, an enormous abyss appeared. It was pitch black and immeasurably deep. The mist was thick, forming all types of malicious spirits and demons. They howled in grief as they struggled out. The 21st danger zone in the Yang realm has officially taken shape. From now on, it will stand tall and erect, turning into vile soil that can no longer be entered. There was another person standing in the other direction. It was a woman with hair as white as snow. Although her face was rosy, the vicissitudes in the depths of her eyes betrayed her age. Behind her was an illustrious and famous Empyrean, Tai Wu. He was standing in the back, carrying out the etiquette of a disciple. One could imagine how high this woman's status was. No wonder it's called Een Prefecture. The rumors are true, said the woman indifferently. Finally, she turned and left. Ordinary people didn't know what Een province's changes meant at all. Only heavenly venerables that had lived for an extremely long time, families with shocking inheritances, and others could sense it and understand it clearly. Tai Wu raised his head. Even with his cultivation level, he could only vaguely hear the last words of the woman. The legend is about to become reality. The deduction has a basis. What do you mean? Tai Wu frowned. Soon, Een province became a barren land that represented death and terror. No one was willing to approach it. At the same time, the storm finally calmed down. No matter how shocking the cataclysm was, it was impossible for it to continue being discussed. After half a year, it was no longer a hot topic. Of course, people would occasionally mention it, and it would still lead to discussions. Unfortunately, no one could find the truth, none of them able to understand the deeper nature. Human King left the mountains, enlightening the world. After hundreds and thousands of years, this will become a story of praise. 10,000 years later, even my followers will call themselves ancestors. Half a year had passed. Chu Feng prepared to leave the mountains, leave desolate border. Not far out, The nine netherworld's deity in the stone coffin curled its lips. It really wanted to say that this little bastard was finally going to leave the mountains to bring disaster everywhere. Old Nine, are you curling your lips in disdain? Chu Feng shouted. The nine netherworld's deity was shocked. How did you know? Forget it. I won't bicker with you. After all, you and that donkey were both my earliest followers. In the future, I'll grant you too the title of servants, the Empyrean level. The nine netherworld's deity retorted, saying, Little bastard, the more you speak, the more ridiculous you are. Am I your servant? I am your sworn brother. Also, what are you trying to say? Are you going to find a donkey to stand side by side with me? In front of the stone coffin, there was a tall and divine steed, even more robust than an ordinary horse king. This was a wild donkey spirit that Chu Feng had subdued from the depths of the mountain range. Now, it was being used to pull a carriage. The carriage used the stone coffin as the foundation, and a lot of good wood was used to make the carriage body. You are humiliating me. A donkey pulling a carriage, and my stone coffin has become a part of the carriage? You're going too far. Be careful, or I'll suck your blood essence dry. The nine netherworld's deity cried out indignantly. However, he was only shouting. Currently, he could no longer threaten Chu Feng. During this half a year, Chu Feng repeatedly researched, using domain methods to seal the stone coffin. In the end, he really succeeded, and all of this was because he had inadvertently used a type of material. That was a pile of soil in a stone jar from the ultimate zone of reincarnation. At that time, not only did Chu Feng seize all kinds of fortunes, such as the 33-year-old heavenly grass, the sun dragon river, and the 6 paths of reincarnation blood, but he also dug up the soil and took away a pile of it. Now, he discovered that he could use this kind of soil to seal the sky gold stone coffin and make the nine netherworld's deity behave himself. Where did you find this soil? It's too evil. Why does it make me feel cold all over and my soul palpitate? How vile. The nine netherworld's deity was incomparably apprehensive. This kind of soil could actually seal the sky gold stone coffin. It was too shocking. Chu Feng put his hands behind his back and said, Back in the days of prehistoric times, during the heaven burial era, this old man entered reincarnation alone and fought a bloody battle against the mastermind behind the scenes. I broke the reincarnation cave and obtained 6 types of ultimate soil. I mixed it into a millstone and suppressed it on the path of reincarnation, wiping away the memories of my previous life and ensuring that all living beings of various races could reincarnate smoothly. Now, I control heaven and earth. I reached into reincarnation and cut off a corner of the millstone, grinding it into soil to seal the demons and ghosts of the Yang realm. Second brother, my servant, you should rejoice that you're the first. Follow me sincerely, and I'll grant you a supreme Tao fruit in the future. The nine netherworld's deity's teeth hurt. He felt that this grandson was full of nonsense and couldn't listen to his nonsense. He could only ponder over it selectively. He had a premonition that this soil was too terrifying and special. Chu Feng said again, Donkey, I think of an old friend when I see you. Perform well, and I won't treat you unfairly in the future. Pull the cart and go. He thought of the old donkey, Lu Feiyang. He didn't know if he could reincarnate successfully and if he could survive. Will they meet again? Yes, Master Zilio. This donkey imitated a horse's cry and shook its head and tail. Its navy blue fur was very shiny like silk and satin. It really didn't look like a donkey at all. Chu Feng reprimanded, Donkey, you have to be more confident. You have to know that under the donkey cart you're pulling, there's a former almighty in this stone coffin. Why don't you have the slightest bit of ambition and imitate a horse's cry? All right, I understand. The donkey spirit nodded solemnly before raising his head and crying, Chirp, chirp, chirp. Shut up. Are you an old sparrow? Why are you imitating a sparrow's cry for no reason? Chu Feng was exasperated at the donkey's failure to meet his expectations. The donkey spirit said, I'm imitating the first cry of the phoenix. Legend has it that the immortal bird cries. Up to you. Chu Feng couldn't be bothered with it. Yes, master. Chirp, 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 the nine netherworld's deity said faintly from behind. Let me eat this donkey. I can't afford to lose this face. Stop talking nonsense and hurry back to the tribe to bid farewell. Go, Chu Feng said. He sat in the donkey cart and patted the coffin under his butt. Old Nine, you said that your family's wealth has been buried for thousands of years. Is it still there? The Nine Netherworld's deity said indignantly, Stop. First, I'm not called Old Nine. Second, what does my family's wealth have to do with you? Third, I can't take it anymore. What do you mean by sitting on my coffin? I don't want to be your donkey cart. Aren't you the Nine Netherworld's deity? If you don't like to be called second brother, then I'll call you Old Nine. We are sworn brothers. Isn't your family's wealth mine? Can't I ask in advance? What are we doing the Tianxia map? Isn't it to dig up your old nest and old treasures? Also, becoming the carriage of the human king will be a good story in the future. I'll grant you the throne. F***CK, your grandfather's throne. The Nine Netherworld's deity couldn't take it anymore. Outside the G tribe, Ji-Hu, Fatty Dumpling, and the others' eyes were slightly red. They were on the verge of tears. How could they not have feelings for each other after living together for so many years? Ji Haishan and some of the tribe elders sighed. They were very against Chu Feng going far away, but they couldn't stop him. Why are you crying? It's not like I'm not coming back. Fatty Dumpling, Ji-Hu, you guys are going to get married and have children in 2 years. Why are you still crying? You're so useless. Who's crying? I'm just thinking that you're going far away and won't be able to drink Meng Po's soup or eat fresh roasted fire dragons. Chu Feng smiled and said, It's not good to eat too much of those things. Meng Po's soup makes people forgetful. Fire dragon meat is too nutritious. You guys don't have weak kidneys. If you eat too much before you get married, your body will become inflamed. Chu Feng smiled cheekily, trying to lighten the sadness of their parting. He had once shared his Meng Po's soup with the people he knew in the village. He had also used the stone coffin as a seal to kill a fire dragon. He brought it back and ate it. These were all things that could not be seen in the tribe. Godfather, I'm leaving. Before Chu Feng left, he passed a bag of pills the size of a human head to Ji Haishan. In the past few years, almost everyone in the village had a big pill. For some reason, Yingying's 9th grandfather didn't appear in the past few years. He didn't ask him to make pills for him. At the same time, Dongqing and that lady didn't return either. This was also the reason why Chu Feng decided to leave. He needed to find his own opportunities and quickly become stronger. He had to take a look at all the places that Empyrean Stone who had mentioned. Just like that, Chu Feng left. He sat on the donkey cart and began his journey to the ends of the world. Hiya, Joe. This old man once ruled over 6 provinces. G-Dade, don't you feel like you're sitting on pins and needles when you transform my coffin into a donkey cart and sit on it? Chapter 1070. I have a little donkey, but I never ride it. One day, I was carried away by a whim. On the bumpy mountain road, Chu Feng was humming a little tune in a good mood. From now on, he had officially set foot on the vast land of the Yang realm. He was looking forward to the magnificent picture scroll. Master, please give me a way out. While Chu Feng was humming, the handsome donkey couldn't stand him anymore. He pulled the donkey cart and ran away while begging for mercy. Are you embarrassed when the donkey is mentioned in the song? Chu Feng laughed. No, please don't poison my ears anymore, the donkey mumbled. Donkey, you're disdaining my heavenly voice. You don't have the slightest bit of the tranquil mood of a red cart. Moreover, you lack a rare noble sentiment. You're simply a common donkey. Hearing Chu Feng's shameless nonsense, the 9 nether deity couldn't stand him anymore and said, G-Dade, I beg you to accumulate virtue and stop singing. This old man feels ashamed even when traveling with you. If we were to accidentally meet an old friend from back then, where'd I put my old face? Along the way, Chu Feng had used the teleportation domain several times. However, he also spent a lot of time driving like this because he wanted to experience the local customs. Half a month had passed, and he still hadn't left Yu province. This was the result of crossing the void continuously. Normally speaking, if they didn't step into the teleportation domain, Ordinary evolvers wouldn't be able to leave a province even if they drove for their entire lives. This went to show just how vast the Yang realm was. I'm about to leave the desolate border. I haven't experienced it in detail before. I'll experience the tribal culture along the way. Chu Feng sighed. Suddenly, he saw smoke rising into the sky in front of him. There was a murderous aura filling the air. After driving up a slope, he found a tribe being massacred by a group of bandits. The scene was brutal and bloody. What a beast! They won't even let the children go. This wasn't the first time he had encountered such a thing. It wasn't easy for a tribe to survive. Not only did they have to fight against ferocious birds and beasts, but they also had to deal with man-made disasters. Donkey, what are you waiting for? Charge forward and kill them. Chu Feng shouted. Most of the people living in the desolate border were berserkers who worshipped the berserker god. Some tribes would use a large amount of human blood as a primer when they offered sacrifices. These bandits specifically raided villages to collect blood. Relatively speaking, the G Clan's tribe was relatively peaceful. They had never encountered such a thing. However, in some more remote places that lacked the protection of the alliance of large tribes, this kind of tragedy was not rare. Father! In the village, a 14 or 15-year-old girl screamed in a shrill voice. She saw a man riding on a black panther rushing over and beheading her father with a single slash of a saber, sending her father's head flying into the air, causing a large amount of blood to blossom. Then, a spatial gourd on the black leopard's body shone and absorbed the blood. Meanwhile, this was only the tip of the village's tragedy. There were some old and gray-haired elders who were also decapitated. Their heads tumbled down, the scene extremely miserable. The battle cries of this small tribe shook the heavens. Although the people here resisted with all their might, they were no match for this group of murderers. With a swoosh, the Black Panther Knight's snow-white, long sword swept horizontally towards the young girl. Sister, a young child cried out in fear. Clang! The donkey spirit pulled the cart and pounced forward crazily. With a kick of his hoof, he sent the long sword flying, causing sparks to fly in all directions. Who are you? How dare you meddle in our affairs? Old Nine Ram. Chu Feng let the Nine Nether Spirit make a move. The donkey spirit pulled the cart and rampaged about, instantly arousing the anger of some mounted gangsters. Many people rushed over with blood-stained weapons. Dong! Bang! The donkey cart, which used the stone coffin as its foundation, simply had the power to topple mountains and overturn seas. It collided and swept about here. The strength of this group of mounted gangsters was really not weak. Some of them had reached the Golden Body realm, but they were all very miserable. All of their bones were broken and their muscles were torn. If it wasn't for Chu Feng sealing the stone coffin with the special soil of the ultimate land of reincarnation, these people would have their blood sucked dry. Even so, they still suffered heavy losses. Not long after, 80% of the nearly 100 mounted gangsters were wiped out. Run! There's something strange about this cart. The wind is tight, run. F***CK. This is a spirit car. When Chu Feng heard their angry cries, he couldn't help but be stunned. His ride was really a spirit car. He was speechless for a while. This was a typical spirit car, drifting, crashing in all directions. Chase after them. Get rid of evil for the people. Chu Feng chased and killed all the way. There were constantly spirit cars drifting, blocking this group of villains. He sighed and didn't return to that small tribe. He could only help here. And this was a small episode on the road. Chu Feng continued on his way. However, his speed was still not very fast, and he was not in a hurry to go far. He was thinking about something and said, Second brother, I use special soil to seal the stone coffin, but if we meet a fierce person, if I can't release you in time and use you as a heaven-flipping seal, wouldn't I be crippling my own martial arts? Do you have any solution? The Nine Nether Spirit only heard this and was angry. It was sealed, and it didn't absorb a drop of blood after crashing about randomly just now. It was used as a heaven-flipping seal, and it was asked to follow and think of a solution. It was really outrageous. Second brother, are you asleep? Why aren't you talking? I don't want to talk to you. Chu Feng said, Yes, I'll think of a way myself. Maybe I can use the reincarnation earth to refine a suit of armor. I'll wear it and free the stone coffin. The nine nether spirit immediately changed its tune. Good idea. How wonderful. It was full of flattery. However, reality was helpless. Chu Feng had tried all kinds of flames, but it was useless. They couldn't melt the reincarnation earth. There was simply no solution. The nine nether spirits suggested, let's go to the Yang River. There's a special flame in that river apart from the Yang Spring. Maybe it can melt this kind of earth. The Yang realm originated from a stone mountain and flowed through several provinces. It was filled with overflowing Yang energy. Additionally, the Yang Spring would occasionally appear in the river, which made the evolvers of all races envious. The so-called Yang Spring was also Granny Meng's soup. Next, Chu Feng began to lay down the transportation domain. He no longer admired the local customs along the way because he had more or less understood what he needed to understand. He left the universe and entered the Dongsheng divine continent. Moreover, he arrived at a riverbank with rolling hot air and glaring light. The Yang River had Granny Meng's soup and was guarded by evolvers all year round. However, this river was simply too long and spanned several provinces. No family could seal off the entire river. Chu Feng chose a quiet place and gazed at the river from afar. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This was a great river with glowing water. It was blooming with dense light and surging Yang energy. It whistled and surged as if it was rushing into the sky. That kind of grandeur was too spectacular. Half a month later, Chu Feng saw a ball of hazy flame beside the river. It was glowing brightly, and he was shaken. He almost mistook it for the reincarnation fire from the purgatory. There's Granny Meng's soup and fire in the water. There's also dense Yang energy. How strange. Chu Feng sighed. He quickly made preparations and didn't let this opportunity slip by. He began to burn special soil with the help of this special flame. In the end, Chu Feng took out the dragon scale armor he had obtained from the dragon's nest and prepared to fuse it with the reincarnation earth. This way, it would have a sturdy defensive effect and could also defend against the threat of the nine underworlds. The flames flickered, and in the end, Chu Feng really succeeded. Some of the holes on the tattered dragon scale armor were filled up with earth. The reincarnation earth was melted and refined. It was like porcelain, but it also looked like a sparkling and translucent metal sheet. When it was finally completed, it looked rather extraordinary. Chu Feng made all kinds of calculations. The dragon scale armor had become extraordinary after being covered with that special layer of sparkling substance. He made strict deductions and made serious calculations. Wearing this armor, even if many parts of his body were exposed, he could still defend against the nine underworlds and the stone coffin. Right now, its most terrifying move was sucking blood and absorbing people's soul light. It was difficult to use other secret techniques with the coffin in between. After it wore the armor, it experienced it seriously. The effects were pretty good. During this period, the nine underworlds tried to mount a sneak attack, but it was useless. This made it resentful and disappointed. Chu Feng studied the map and carefully found the Azure Prefecture on a beast skin scroll. That was the prefecture where the extreme martial deity resided. His location and inheritance were all there. The ruins of the damning Pure Land are also in the Azure Prefecture. On that day, Chu Feng constructed a large-scale teleportation domain. Even though he was separated by several prefectures, he rushed over immediately and entered the Azure Prefecture. He wanted to take a look. Old Nine, do you know of the damning Pure Land evolutionary sect? Chu Feng stood on a tall mountain in the Azure Prefecture and surveyed the distance. There was a very large city between the mountains and rivers in front of him. It was extremely flourishing and filled with the aura of the mortal world. This was the first time he had seen such a flourishing city after coming to the Yang realm. The nine underworlds said, "How can I not know?" The damning Pure Land was once ranked among the top 10 orthodoxies in prehistoric times. They were extremely flourishing. Chu Feng sighed after hearing this. No matter how great an inheritance is, there will come a day when it will reach its end. The damning Pure Land has been destroyed for who knows how many years. People have almost forgotten about it. Then, he waved his hand and decided to rush to the ruins of the damning Pure Land. Old Nine lead the way. Even though he was in the Azure Prefecture, he still had to use the teleportation domain. The main reason was that this prefecture was too big. 2 days later, Chu Feng arrived at a barren land in the Azure Prefecture. Not even a blade of grass grew there. It didn't look like a habitable place at first glance. This was an important place that Chu Feng had been thinking about after he left the desolate border and pondered over it seriously. Damning Pure Land, I'm here. Looking at this barren and lifeless land that had been completely trampled flat, even the 9 underworlds sank into silence. This was one of the most powerful evolutionary sects of its era. During its most resplendent and glorious period, it could almost command the world. Chu Feng came here to try and see if he could find the complete chapter of the damning breathing technique. He wanted to search for it and test his luck to see if he could discover the reason why this orthodoxy could produce true dragon elixir in the past. Chapter 1071. The so-called Pure Land was now just a land of death. Birds could not be seen, insects could not be seen, and plants could not be found. The entire ruins were filled with a deathly aura. In the past, there were still people who came here to pay their respects, to reminisce about the past, and to search for opportunities. But after a long period of time, people from all walks of life came back empty-handed. How lamentable, how pitiful. Chu Feng sighed. He sat on a weathered rock and surveyed the ancient land from a distance. He could see that this area had once condensed heavenly flowers and earthly treasures. It had absorbed the ancestral chi of the earth veins and lived in seclusion. Every inch of soil had once flowed with great Tao fragments, and the essence energy had even more evaporated over the years. It lingered around this place and was truly an immortal abode of heaven. But it was destroyed just like that. Humans killed until rivers of blood flowed and corpses piled up like mountains. There were no longer any signs of life within 1,000,000 miles. All living things were dead. It was really hard to imagine how powerful Damning Pure Land's main enemy was. After all, this place was one of the top 10 evolutionary sects in the Yang realm back then. Things remain the same, but people have changed. The blue sea has turned into mulberry fields. The 9 Nether sighed with incomparable disappointment and frustration. Thinking back to the past, Damning Pure Land's name shook the Yang realm. Even in prehistoric times, it was respected by the world. At that time, it wasn't called Damning Pure Land, but Ancient Dream Path. How did they get destroyed? They developed rapidly and wanted to seize another race's ultimate breathing technique, but they were destroyed instead? That's not quite possible. It doesn't fit with the style of this sect. Treasuring a jade ring becomes a crime. Did they have a secret manual for brewing true dragon elixir that attracted covetous eyes? This reason is also very far-fetched. The 9 Nether shook its head. It had personally experienced that era and had some understanding of this powerful evolutionary sect. It didn't agree with the theories that were spread in later generations. Chu Feng was very quiet as he looked at this wasteland. Not even the so-called broken walls and rubble were left behind. Everything had been emptied. Back then, Ancient Dream Path was too powerful and looked down on the Yang realm. After it was unexpectedly destroyed, all parties flocked over in order to find the sect's scriptures and ancient techniques. They didn't even let go of a single tile. Everyone's hearts were filled with hope. What if the rubble was like a ring that could hold a mountain? There were also some who suspected that the clan's scriptures were engraved within the mountain stone artifacts. Therefore, not to mention the jade palaces, copper palaces, and gold pavilions, even the majestic mountains were uprooted and placed in the territory of the various powerful clans. Chu Feng sat there and looked at the wasteland. At the same time, he couldn't help but think of those people in the small underworld. There's also a Damning Pure Land there, but it had been completely wiped out by someone. Not even the fowls and dogs were spared. Apart from a few people who escaped to a small planet, all the disciples and followers were either dead or wounded. Even Qin Luoyin died in that battle. She was ambushed and corroded by the golden substance. In the end, she perished, leaving behind only sorrow and regret. Chu Feng was quiet and lost in thought. He looked at the wasteland and thought about the people and matters of the little underworld. For a long time, he was like a clay statue or a wooden sculpture. Qin Luoyin died, and the child she left behind, the little Taoist, also reincarnated into the Yang realm. Back then, he had once gone crazy and went to the foreign realm to cultivate like a demon, drawing the gray substance into his body. In the end, Chu Feng succeeded. He killed some of the enemies and even forced his way through reincarnation to the Yang realm. He wanted to take revenge for his parents, Qin Luoyin, the Black Yak, and the others. His usual mischievous smile concealed the heaviness in his heart. The blood and tears of his old friends were still in front of him. It seemed as though they hadn't dried up yet, and he couldn't forget them. Finding Tai Wu, Hunyi, and the others to take revenge was one of his main objectives in coming to the Yang realm. At the same time, he also hoped to see those old friends who had passed away again one day. Those people are like withered flowers withering in the wind, drifting away without a place to return to. Will I ever see them again? Chu Feng put away his heaviness and stopped thinking about them. He revealed his fiery eyes and explored this place to get to the bottom of it. What was the use of saying so much and showing sorrow? The road was still long, and people still wanted to walk forward alive. It was better to leave everything for the future and put into action. Chu Feng didn't conceal it all. Golden beams of light flew out from his eyes and illuminated the entire underground. He definitely wanted to explore the depths of the underground. He hoped that there were some things left behind by the people back then. The stone coffin shook and the Nine Nether Spirit was stunned. If it didn't sense wrongly, this was the fiery eyes? This kind of ability couldn't be activated just because you were strong. You needed special opportunities to master it. It could be considered a kind of innate skill that couldn't be controlled in advance. Oh, there's really something here. Chu Feng was in a daze. Ever since he understood enough on the road, and especially after coming here, he no longer held any hope. Not even a tile was left behind. Even a mountain range had been moved away. What could be left of the barren land? But now, Chu Feng sensed something unusual under the damning Pure Land's ruins. Let's go, second brother. Let's go down and take a look. Chu Feng removed the stone coffin from the donkey cart and submerged it into the soil layer. He went underground. The donkey spirit stayed on the surface and was in charge of keeping watch. This time, he went very deep. He didn't even know how many kilometers he had gone. The underground world was pitch black, but he didn't encounter even a brick. There was nothing at all. He pondered that even the soil here might have been snatched away by someone, and that this place was filled up by sandstorms later on. That's not right. I clearly sensed something abnormal underground. Why haven't I discovered anything yet? He was flabbergasted. He continued to go down and opened his fiery eyes. In the end, he finally confirmed that there was a mass of black mist in the extreme depths of the underground. There was a pitch-black soil that was extremely cold. When Chu Feng was still several kilometers away, he stopped. That kind of coldness seeped into his bones and almost froze him. What was this place? Moreover, he was certain that even without the fiery eyes, other evolvers would be able to sense it as long as they were willing to dive deep enough. Moreover, how could those top-notch experts miss this place? If there was a land of fortune, it wouldn't be left for a latecomer like him. En Manor, the Nine Nether God, gave him the answer. He had revived in another En Manor and struggled out with great difficulty. He understood this kind of terrifying place the best. Go and investigate. Chu Feng urged him. I won't go even if you beat me to death. The Nine Nether God refused flatly. What kind of joke was this? En Manor wasn't a place anyone could charge into. Even an entity like him who had awakened from there was afraid of it. It was clear how dangerous it was. You'll go if you can't beat me to death, right? Chu Feng asked. What do you mean? Chu Feng said, what I mean is that you originally came from En Manor. Help me investigate and see if this place has anything to do with damning Pure Land. Could it be that the destruction of damning Pure Land is related to Een Manor? Additionally, there might be fortunes below. You should look for it properly, and we brothers will do something big. Otherwise, if you refuse, I'll just use the teleportation domain to directly send you in. The Nine Nether God simply had a constipated expression and was full of hidden bitterness in the stone coffin. Then he grinded his teeth. He was truly unhappy to be threatened by a child who said he would do something big. However, ever since he became a spirit carriage, he had no choice but to live under other people's eaves. I'll lend you a hand. Chu Feng suddenly threw the stone coffin into the depths of the ground. Boom! The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. The stone coffin was like a javelin as it drilled into the ground at lightning speed and approached Een Manor in the blink of an eye. The Nine Nether God naturally cried out. This little bastard's strength was too great. If he were to be thrown in, who knew how many years it would take for him to crawl out? No one understood better than him just how terrifying Een Manor was. A large scarlet mist of blood rose from the stone coffin as its speed rapidly slowed down. In the end, it stopped outside a black mist. Not far away, malicious spirits howled. It was a sinister and terrifying scene. This is Een Manor. It's no different from the one in the desolate borders Gourd Crater. It's a land of death. The Nine Nether God shouted after he finished his investigation. In reality, Chu Feng was already hiding in the stone jar. He was worried that something might happen, so he came out after a while and went all the way down. Old Nine, you didn't even go in, so what right do you have to speak? Een Manor appearing under damning Pure Land is definitely not normal. Go in and take a look. The Nine Nether God immediately became anxious after hearing this. Fuck your grandpa. Black-hearted brat. It's easy for you to say that. What kind of place is this? Can you just casually enter? I'm not asking you to go in. I'm just looking for the entrance to see if there are any messages left behind by the predecessors. What if this is a lucky chance? Lucky chance my ass. Unless someone who can't be any more dead wants to come back, who would be willing to approach this place? The Nine Nether God shouted. Hearing the malicious spirits' howls and demons' roars, it was truly a bit scared. After staying in this kind of place for a while, it definitely wouldn't want to go back. In the end, it still moved. It searched through the black mist and found the correct path. It was connected to a boundless Nine Netherland. It was filled with a deathly aura, and the earth was dripping with blood. The most important thing was that the area outside of Een Manor was very spacious. It was a cave that could accommodate many people. It's nothing. This old man already said that how could there be a lucky chance in this kind of place? This is a land of death, a land of decay. Even if a heavenly deity stayed here for a long time, his body and spirit would disappear. At this point, the Nine Nether God cried out as if a mortal had seen a ghost in broad daylight. It was incomparably mournful and fled for its life. A ball of light blossomed there. It was too dazzling and incomparably divine. It was as if an immortal country had opened and the heavens had appeared, illuminating the entire space outside of Een Manor. Only I know who was the first to wake up from this great dream. A machine-like voice rang out from within Een Manor. There was no emotion, nor were there any fluctuations of emotion. It was as if an ice-cold robot was indifferently speaking. The Nine Nether God's stone coffin flipped over and flew out, as if it had suffered an unimaginable injury. A large amount of bloody mist rose from the coffin as it cried out in alarm. Dreamland, Soulland, not enough soul flesh. That machine-like voice rang out again. What was that? Chu Feng observed in secret and found it hard to believe. This was but Een Manor, so how could there be such a divine light? No matter which record it was, it had never been mentioned before. Impossible! What kind of place is this? The Nine Nether God also cried out. At this time, Chu Feng saw specks of light up on the stone coffin. It was as if they were eternal stars that illuminated the entire cosmos. Even though they were all tiny specks, they were too dazzling and glaring at this moment. Wait a moment, are you talking about soul flesh? It's actually that kind of thing. The Nine Nether God's mind trembled in disbelief. Soul flesh is required to activate. The machine-like voice resounded through the glaring light. Chu Feng stared at the stone coffin. In a split second, he knew what the so-called soul flesh was, and great waves surged in his heart. The thing he had inadvertently collected was actually a type of ultimate material of fortune. Chapter 1072. This thing was soul flesh? Ayo. Chu Feng wanted to shout in pain. If he had known earlier, he would have dug until he vomited. However, there seemed to be no place to put it back then. How was this possible? Brat, who exactly are you? Why do you have soul flesh on your body? With your level, you can't even come into contact with it. Even my big brother didn't obtain it back then. Not far away, the 9 netherworld deity in the stone coffin that was struck by the resplendent light beam was roaring. It was trembling in disbelief. What kind of person was its sworn big brother? He had once controlled 1/10 of a Yang realm's territory. This was a glorious and world-shattering feat. From the prehistoric era to the present, only a few people had managed to accomplish this. Even that kind of person would feel regret when soul flesh was mentioned and never possessed it. So how could this wicked child in front of it have it? Moreover, he had shamefully squandered it before. The dark mist evaporated and the entrance to Een Manor shone resplendently. This didn't conform to common sense. How could divine radiance and energy appear in the 9 netherworld deathland? None of the history books had recorded such a situation. In the depths of the Een Manor, above the bleeding soil, there was a golden crack that seemed to be opening in the void. It was very strange, and all the divine radiance was blossoming from within. The granules on the stone coffin were sparkling and translucent. They were full and gorgeous, and at this moment, they all danced in the air and flew toward the golden crack in Een Manor. The golden crack was absorbing the soul flesh. Too little, unable to open. An ice-cold and mechanical voice came from Een Manor. I have it. Chu Feng rushed over with the stone jar in hand. He used the 9 netherworld deities' stone coffin as a shield within a certain safe range. In fact, his body shone as soon as he approached. A dazzling multicolored light shone. It was too holy and pure as it purified the underground deathland. With a tearing sound, a large amount of bloody mist rose from the stone coffin. The 9 netherworld deity screamed miserably and fled without a trace. In fact, Chu Feng had already run away. The dragon-scale armor on his body that had been refined with reincarnation soil almost disintegrated and turned into sparkling granules that flew toward the golden crack in the deathland. It was not until he had retreated to a safe distance that he steadied himself and shouted again, "Wait a moment. The soul meat is coming." The so-called soul flesh was actually a special type of soil that Chu Feng had dug out from the ultimate land of reincarnation. Back then, he had grabbed a section of the root of the 33-layer heaven's grass and missed out on too many creation substances. He was furious. He dug 3 feet into the ground and messed around in that final land. But in the end, he didn't obtain any natural luck. He could only carry a pile of earth and continue on his way. Who would have thought that this special characteristic could restrain the 9 underworlds and seal the stone coffin? In the end, he smelted it and combined it with the dragon scale armor to become a protective treasure. And now, its true origin was revealed. It was actually the so-called soul and flesh. Although Chu Feng didn't know what it was used for and where it came from, he knew that it must have a terrifying origin and an inestimable value. Even the big brother of the 9 underworlds regretted not having it in his hands. So how could it be an ordinary item? Chu Feng grabbed a handful of the special soil and really didn't see anything unusual. He had once boasted to the 9 underworlds that he had broken the reincarnation cave and taken 6 types of ultimate soil to form a millstone to suppress the reincarnation path. It would erase the memories of the previous life and ensure that the creatures of all races could smoothly reincarnate. He had also said that the soil in his hand was obtained by cutting off a corner of the millstone and grinding it into powder. However, even he didn't believe it. It was completely boasting. But now, why did he feel that this thing might not be any weaker than what he had boasted? Its origin was shocking. With a swoosh, he he scattered the soil in his hand, sending it flying towards the land of death. In the air, the soil particles shone like tiny sariras. All of them were full, translucent, and holy. Then, the golden crack in the air of Een Manor rapidly opened up and swallowed the so-called soul and flesh. It opened continuously until it finally formed a door and revealed the scenery inside. For a moment, Chu Feng was startled and didn't dare to act rashly. Not far away, the sound of saliva being swallowed came from the stone coffin. In the prehistoric era, how glorious was the ancient dream path? Who wouldn't give face? It intimidated the world of the living. Was the true inheritance of this bloodline opening now? It was an auspicious space with golden radiance circulating around the door. It was extremely divine and was filled with fragments of the great Tao that flowed out from that small world like a beautiful stream. In the small world, what entered his eyes was a stone table with an ancient scripture placed on it. Was there even a need to ask? It was definitely the highest scripture of the prehistoric ancient dream path. Ancient dust boat, G-date, go and get the scripture. The 9 underworlds swallowed a mouthful of saliva and urged Chu Feng. Chu Feng said, "Second brother, am I the kind of person who swallows good fortune alone? I'll share the riches and honor with you, so you go and get it." The 9 underworlds was incomparably humble. "How can I steal the merit? Big brother, this scripture is yours, so I definitely can't do that kind of tasteless thing. When the time comes, you just have to teach me some scriptures." Chu Feng cursed. This grandson was too slippery. He actually resisted the temptation and didn't take the risk. He was rather afraid of death. If he really obtained the scripture, he wouldn't let him read a single word. Now he finally understood why none of the major evolutionary sects had obtained the supreme breathing technique of the ancient dream path. This was once one of the top 10 techniques in history and was known as the ultimate technique. The main reason was that no one had discovered that there was another universe inside Een Manor. The value of the scripture could be seen just from the sound of the fellow in the stone coffin swallowing his saliva. This was a breathing technique that had suppressed both ancient and modern times. The most important thing was that the scripture on the stone table should be very complete. If he really obtained it, he could directly pave his future path. Up to this day, Chu Feng had already collected some breathing techniques, but they were all incomplete. Even the robbery induction was extremely strange and couldn't explain its ultimate secret. A complete ultimate breathing technique was placed in front of him for the first time. Not to mention celestial venerable level evolvers. Even powerhouses would immediately kill their way here if they knew about the situation here. They would fight with their lives on the line and seize it regardless of the price. This was once a glorious ancient technique that had been lost for a long time. Once it appeared, it would definitely lead to a bloody war. How lamentable. The culprit back then dug 100 kilometers underground, but still couldn't bring this scripture away. It's still here after so many years. The 9 Netherworld Gui was speechless after it finished speaking. Regardless of whether it was him or Chu Feng, both of them were certain that countless people had come here since ancient times, and they had definitely discovered this Een Manor land of death. However, there is absolutely no one who could see through this small world in the void. Without the special soil of the ultimate land of reincarnation, it was simply impossible to open it. "Let me take a look," the 9 Netherworld Gui mumbled. A large amount of bloody mist rose from the stone coffin and pervaded the land of death. It was investigating and quickly confirmed that there were celestial venerables who had entered Een Manor. There were also powerhouses who had taken action here to search for some items under the bloody land of death. There were even people of that level who had almost died here. No one could stay in this land of death for a long time. How lamentable. The giants of various aristocratic families and even the founding ancestors of certain sects had come here before. There is the damaged soul protection talisman of the Sakya clan, as well as the incense and candles of the Hung clan. The 9 Netherworld Gay investigated and found some remnants. After countless eras, it was unknown how many peak evolvers had come here in succession to search for these items, but they had all failed. All those who had come here were merely passers-by, and had all returned without any achievements. Suddenly, a sweet-sounding laughter rang out. It was very pure and could make people forget their worries after listening to it. What was going on? Chu Feng was shocked. There was still someone in this golden crack in the void. A young girl appeared there. She was graceful and noble and wore a brightly colored dress. Her bright eyes flickered and her tall body swayed. She was truly a peerless beauty. That kind of style and aura was like the rebirth of a fairy from the nine heavens. Chu Feng was petrified. His eyes were slightly sore and his entire body stiffened in place. Chapter 1073. Qin Luoyin. How could he not be familiar? Chu Feng almost didn't dare to believe his eyes when he saw her here. Inside the golden spatial rift, other sceneries could be seen more and more clearly. The back of the stone table with the scriptures was full of vitality. Peach blossoms were blooming there, and the entire tree was pink. It was a land of peach blossoms. Qin Luoyin was in the midst of the peach forest. She was charming, and her sweet smile made the entire forest even more beautiful. Her smile could topple a city. Is that you? Although Chu Feng's body was stiff and his emotions were fluctuating violently, he still maintained his rationality. He shouldn't be seeing Qin Luoyin here. Back then, those old friends of his shared a talisman. He didn't know if they could successfully reincarnate. Even if they succeeded, they shouldn't grow so quickly. They should be children of a few years old. What he saw was a young girl exuding a youthful aura. Her age didn't match. Chu Feng sighed softly. No matter what the reason was, seeing her here made his heart ache slightly. Back then, before she died, Chu Feng had promised to protect the child. In the end, the little Taoist still resolutely chose to reincarnate. Their child was gone, and he couldn't keep his promise. Ancient dream path, this is the great dreamland of inheritance. Is a part of the dream in my heart being reflected now? Chu Feng looked at the woman with outstanding elegance, and his mood was downcast. She was even more exquisite and flawless than the Qin Luoyin in his memories. Her colorful dress danced in the wind, and her every movement was graceful and elegant. The Nine Nether Spirit said with disappointment, "Sigh, I didn't expect to see an old friend here. It's actually you. I'm at my lowest point right now. How can I bear to meet you like this?" Chu Feng was astonished. It could see Qin Luoyin too. "You are in an illusion," Chu Feng reminded. The Nine Nether Spirit wasn't in a good mood. "Brat, what's with your eyes? That's not an illusion, okay? Do you know who she is?" "My child's mother," Chu Feng coldly said. He felt that even if he said this, the other party wouldn't believe him. He wouldn't expose anything. When the Nine Nether Spirit heard this, he was instantly enraged. The stone coffin trembled violently as he said angrily, "This joke isn't nice at all. You better shut up." Seeing how excited it was, Chu Feng was a little stunned. The Nine Nether God shouted in a low voice, "She is my dream lover. Please do not blaspheme her." Chu Feng, he opened his mouth, but no words came out. It was as if he had eaten a dead rat, choking uncomfortably. However, he quickly became furious. This old thing was truly courting death. Was he tired of living? How dare you spout such nonsense? How preposterous! However, he thought that perhaps the two of them saw different characters. After all, this was the ruins of Damong Pure Land, and the fragmented dreamland reflected by each of them was different. However, the Nine Nether God did something that made Chu Feng believe that they saw the same person and that there was no misunderstanding. That was because the stone coffin was filled with wisps of bloody mist. The Nine Nether God used blood chi to outline a picture scroll. It was Qin Luoyin, peerless and incomparably outstanding. "Fairy, I once drew 3,000 portraits of you. They are all treasured and buried in various places in the Yang realm. I will never forget them." When he heard such words, Chu Feng couldn't bear it anymore. He rushed over, picked up the stone coffin, and started smashing it. "You old bastard, you stupid malicious spirit. How dare you challenge my bottom line and blaspheme my child's mother? I'll beat you to death, you old bastard." If he could drag it out of the coffin, Chu Feng would definitely beat its true body. Without a doubt, the nine nether god in the stone coffin was beaten silly. It didn't know what was going on at all. It only came back to its senses after being smashed and rolled on the ground. Then it became furious. F***CK, your grandpa. What are you doing? You even care about me reminiscing about my past beauties. How can you be so tyrannical? I'll fight it out with you. It was flustered and exasperated. It shook the stone coffin and was about to overflow with bloody mist. However, all of this was useless against Chu Feng. He was wearing a dragon-scale armor refined with the earth of reincarnation, which naturally restrained the nine nether god. Those methods were ineffective against him. Chu Feng berated it, but he also sensed that something was amiss after seeing it so agitated and indignant. Could it be that he had misunderstood something? "Are you sure you know this woman?" he asked. The nine nether god was unable to restrain its anger. "Nonsense. Just ask any evolver from prehistoric times, and there won't be anyone who doesn't know her. She's the #1 beauty in the Yang realm. Mother ***Ker. This time, it was Chu Feng's turn to be flabbergasted. He looked carefully and, as expected, found some abnormalities. No wonder this woman was more exquisite than Qin Luoyin. Were they not the same person? But they were too similar. Even their clothing preferences were the same, and their temperament was similar as well. It was just that this woman was more elegant and confident. Her eyes were bright and spirited, and there was a kind of transcendent confidence in her beauty. It seemed he had misunderstood. At the same time, Chu Feng was also convinced that the woman in the golden crack was formed from energy and was an imprint. He had previously identified it as Qin Luoyin, but he lost his sense of propriety because his first impression was the strongest. Moreover, he was struck by the softness in his heart, which evoked his sentimental emotions. That was why he made all kinds of misjudgments. But why were they so similar? Even their demeanor and temperament were similar. Moreover, they were both disciples of the damning Pure Land. This made Chu Feng feel that it was too much of a coincidence. "I already know that you don't exist in this world, but I firmly believe that you'll reincarnate and that we'll meet again one day." It was at this time that the nine nether god's soft voice touched Chu Feng and struck him like a bolt of lightning. At this moment, Chu Feng's heart trembled as he was roused. Could it be that Qin Luoyin was the reincarnation of this woman? A long time ago, he didn't believe in reincarnation and didn't think it existed. But he had personally experienced it. So how could he deny it? Even if that path of reincarnation seemed to be man-made and didn't seem like it was naturally formed, the effect was the same for a small portion of people. It might not necessarily allow all living beings to be reborn, but some evolvers could definitely walk on that path. "Tell me about the past events of the #1 beauty in the Yang realm," said Chu Feng. "What's the use of telling you? You're just a little brat. How can you fight for her injustice and risk your life to save her from thousands of years away?" The nine nether gods sneered. Thousands of years had passed, and time was merciless. The ancient dream path had been destroyed, so there was no need to think about it carefully. The #1 beauty in the Yang realm back then had definitely perished a long time ago. It was impossible for her to still be alive. The nine nether god added with admiration and also flaunting as if it was also glorious and felt the splendor of a lifetime. Do you know how powerful and stunning she was back then? She was the youngest celestial venerable in the Yang realm and was known as one of the most astonishing geniuses in history. Chu Feng was indeed stunned. The woman in front of him had been a celestial venerable a long time ago. She was so powerful and stunning. Indeed, she wasn't an ordinary person. She had outstanding aspects that were difficult to surpass. She was a powerful genius in ancient history. At the same time, this also made Chu Feng's heart tremble. It was really possible for such a person to reincarnate. An identical Qin Luoyin had once appeared in the Little Yin realm, and she was a disciple of the damning Pure Land. Could there be a connection? How lamentable! The beauty has already passed away, and a wisp of her soul has entered the painting. Can we meet again? The 9 nether gods stare at the young girl's figure in that small world as it reminisced. Wait a moment. I remember now, reprimanded Chu Feng, interrupting its state of deep reminiscence. Chu Feng remembered clearly that when the 2 reincarnation hunters interrogated it on Thunderstrike Mountain half a year ago, this 9 nether god even confessed the rotten matter of peeking at its senior sister bathing when it was 4 years old. At the same time, it even mentioned that its sworn brother had married the 3rd most beautiful woman in the Yang realm. In a moment of envy and jealousy, it went to snatch the number 1 beauty in the Yang realm. In the end, it didn't succeed, and it was beaten up instead. This old fellow looked as though he was deeply recalling the past, but in reality, it had nothing to do with it. At most, it could only be considered that it had failed in its admiration and used force to get beaten up. Chu Feng bluntly exposed its shortcomings and spoke of its confession on Thunderstrike Mountain. The 9 nether god flew into a rage out of humiliation and said, "Who cares? Who doesn't have a period of impulsive youth? I admire, I like, that's all." Chu Feng was dumbfounded. What was this? If Qin Luoyin reappeared one day, and she really was the so-called reincarnation of the number 1 beauty in the past, would this old fellow shamelessly curry favor with her? That's enough, brat. You don't need to ask so many questions. The prehistoric most stunning beauty has nothing to do with you. Even if she reappears, you won't be able to compete with me. I want to appear in front of her in my strongest and youngest form. You're just a brat the size of a bean. Don't think about anything else. When Chu Feng heard this, he really had the urge to beat someone up. This old fellow had appeared out of nowhere and randomly interfered. He wanted nothing more than to kick him to the ends of the heavens. I'm warning you, she's the mother of my child. You'd better die as far as you can. Brat, what do you mean by this? How old are you? You're already so obsessed with women and want to fight with me for a confidant. Do you want to become the strongest pervert in history? Go to hell. Chu Feng kicked the stone coffin away. At this moment, a mechanical voice came from the golden crack in the void. The inheritance imprint that belonged to this place was speaking, and it was actually speaking to the girl. A great calamity has come. The patriarch is incompetent and couldn't protect you. He sent a wisp of your soul into the great void, and your innate talent fused into the picture scroll. After a long period of tempering, there will finally be a chance of survival. When you reappear in the Yang realm, and this place is opened, your innate talent will be restored, and the strongest innate talent will be restored. It actually said such words. Then, the young lady in the peach forest shattered into pieces, flying out, and then quickly disappearing. That so-called Great Void must be the ultimate treasure of the Yang realm, the Great Void Pagoda. Legend has it that in the 5th forbidden area, there will be a chance of survival to reincarnate after being tempered by it for countless years. The 9 nether was shocked and then completely excited. It said in a trembling voice, I should not have misinterpreted it. Heavens, she really appeared and reappeared in the Yang realm. Moreover, I was the one who unintentionally opened this place today and released her innate talent. I'll fulfill her wish. This is really fate. Chapter 1074. He was happy that Qin Luoyin seemed to have reincarnated successfully and that they could meet again in this life. All of this was caused by Chu Feng opening the prehistoric golden crack in the ancient dream path with his own hands. Now that her innate talent had returned and her innate body had been repaired, she would undoubtedly be even more stunning and might be able to recreate the glory of the prehistoric era. If her innate talent was stunning and she recalled the past events of the ancient dream path, would she still be in the Little Een realm? The 9 underworlds interrupted his train of thought and shook the coffin, creating loud, banging noises. After being separated for thousands of years, I've finally come to save you. Although I've been sad for 100 lifetimes, we'll be together in the end. This is the arrangement of the unseen. It's fated that we'll meet again in this life. Chu Feng couldn't stand it anymore. This grandson was too full of himself and didn't even think about who had opened the mysterious space in the ancient dream path. Did he want to become his rival in love? A horse doesn't know how long its face is. If you dare speak nonsense again, I'll cut you to death. He was disgusted when he remembered that this was an old man who had died once. Did he want to be his rival in love? He would definitely slap him to death when the time came. The nine nether was trembling with anger. He was extremely indignant and furious to say that the ancient dust boat wasn't a good thing. Chu Feng rubbed his temples. How could he meet such an outrageous old scoundrel? He couldn't even reason with him. In fact, after calming his mind, Chu Feng was also doubting whether what he had just seen and heard was true. After all, this was the ruins of the ancient dream path. If it was just a dream that affected the hearts of people and made him and the nine nether fall for it, then the so-called reincarnation of the prehistoric beauty was fake. He was horrified when he thought of this possibility. In the Yin manor, the soil was stained with blood, and the air was pure and holy like a peaceful divine country in hell. In the space behind the golden crack in the void, peach blossoms danced in the air, sparkling and translucent. Some figures appeared one after another and ran around in the forest. They were a group of innocent and carefree children. Sister, I want a stars and dress, the pure and white kind. When I wear it at night, it'll be like a river of stars revolving around me and flowing with radiance. It'll definitely be very beautiful. A little girl longing for the future, acting spoiled to a young woman. All right, when big sister goes out to train again, I will help you collect star sand and find someone to make a beautiful dress for you. The young woman nodded with a smile, stroked her head, and said gently. On the side, a little boy begged, Big sister, I hope to obtain a Pegasus one day. I want to ride it to the moon to see the little sisters in Lunar Temple. Then we'll have to wait a few years. Heavenly horses are rare and hard to catch. The young woman pinched his little face and laughed. Within the peach blossom garden, flower petals scattered down, sparkling and holy. There was a group of children, as well as a few adult men and women. They were all extremely harmonious, all of them brimming with smiles that came from the bottom of their hearts. A 12 or 13-year-old girl shouted, Senior brother, when are you going to teach me the core essence of the ancient dream breathing technique? I've almost learned the first part. A young man smiled and rubbed her head. You're still young, and you can't use the catalyst to evolve right now. The first half is enough. No matter how one looked at it, the disciples of Damning Pure Land were very friendly and incomparably warm. The scene changed. Lakes, green grasslands, floating islands, and so on appeared. The disciples and teachers of Ancient Dream Path appeared. The atmosphere was similar to the scene just now. It was full of laughter and peace. Master, I accidentally knocked over the copper cauldron used to refine pills. A 16 or 17-year-old boy was very nervous. He lowered his head and reported to his master. He was very uneasy. Forget it. Pay attention next time, the old man said calmly, indicating that he shouldn't be afraid or nervous. These were all old scenes of the past. They were all things that had happened. The nine nether Gui said, This is in line with the style of the ancient dream path. Their breathing technique mainly cultivates the spirit and pursues peace of mind. It lacks sharpness and drive. This was also the reason why it didn't believe that the ancient dream path was destroyed, because they coveted the ultimate breathing technique, which was also in the top 10. That was because this lineage was very low-key most of the time. It lacked the fierceness and hostility of the other tyrannical and powerful evolutionary sections. Chu Feng also saw that based on what he saw in the golden spatial crack, there was most likely something fishy about the destruction of this lineage. It didn't seem to match the legends. Boom! All of a sudden, a great change occurred in the small world behind the golden crack. Groups of armored cavalry descended from the magnificent ancient Dream Dao field. They were all demon-level evolvers. On this day, a great calamity suddenly arrived. Celestial venerables led a large number of experts to attack. These armored cavalry were all clad in black armor and wore malicious ghost masks. They looked sinister and frightening. They held snow-white long swords, sharp swords, and spears in their hands as they charged toward the ancient dream path. Some were disintegrating the domains, while others were attacking and barging their way in. This was a premeditated massacre. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to break through the large sect-protecting domain at the mountain gate in the first place. Originally, it could have killed the invading enemies, but now it had lost its effectiveness. The domain collapsed in an instant. A peerless character in the domain was invited to tear open the mountain gate and open a safe path. Battle cries shook the sky. On this day, damning Pure Land was breached. Large numbers of experts swarmed in and started a massacre. There were celestial venerables fighting in the ancient dream path, but they were surrounded and attacked by people of the same level. There were powerhouses taking action, but terrifying existences also descended among the enemy. This was a planned encirclement and suppression. They dared to attack the ancient dream path of the top 10. This was definitely a major event that shocked the Yang realm. In fact, it was enough to be recorded in the annals of history. Go, all disciples, run for your lives. Don't stop and don't look back. The originally peaceful ancient dream path was stained with blood. A white-haired elder roared as he blocked the powerful enemies and allowed the disciples to retreat. That was because the invading enemies were too powerful. Even a celestial venerable couldn't stop them. Even a powerhouse like him wouldn't be able to survive. Master, someone cried out in sorrow. It was a middle-aged evolver with eyes that seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. His true age couldn't be determined, but he was at the quasi-celestial venerable realm. He didn't want to escape and joined in the fight to help the elder fight against the enemy. But not long after, he was beheaded by a sword and his head flew out. All of you leave. That white-haired elder roared angrily. His entire body shone as he tried to lock down this part of the world and entangle all the enemies. However, there were at least 3 people at the same level as him hunting him down. They didn't give him a chance and broke through his great Tao symbol light. He was covered in blood and couldn't stand still. Junior sister, you guys run, we'll stop them. In front of the transportation domain, a few youths brought up the rear and let the girls escape. They fought with their lives on the line. Sister, ugh, where are you? We're scared. On the other side, some children were crying and running away in the peach blossom forest. However, someone had already locked onto them and didn't care whether they were children or not. Bang! A spear flew over and was about to kill them all. At this time, a girl swooped down and knocked the spear away with her sword. She activated the Great Dream breathing technique to face the enemy, but there were just too many enemies. After several charges, her entire body was drenched in blood. You guys go, the girl shouted. She told the children to leave quickly and go to the nearest transportation domain. Her entire body shone as she burned herself. She wanted to exhaust all of her potential and fight to the end. Unfortunately, she was pierced in the chest by a spear. Then, she was flung up and shook lightly. This caused her to disintegrate in the air and turn into a rain of blood. Animal! A few young men and women charged over. They were all disciples of the Damung Pure Land, but they couldn't stop them either. The armored cavalry weaved about with sinister smiles as they charged forward in a frenzy. In the end, they also fell down, covered in blood. At the last moment, someone shouted at the children, "Go!" Those children entered the transportation domain and cried loudly as they were enveloped in light and disappeared from the magnetic platform. We can't leave. We'll still be chased to death. Someone laughed coldly from the back. This was only a corner of the ancient dream path. There was killing everywhere and people were dying everywhere. The entire Pure Land was dyed red. Many famous evolvers died, tragically, in a single day. The invading enemies were too powerful, and their numbers were great. The divine kings of the ancient dream path were surrounded, and all of them had their lives harvested. Almost all of them had been killed. As for the gods and the evolvers below, they were also massacred. It wasn't that they weren't strong enough, but that there were too many enemies. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out. All of the invaders seemed to have fallen into a dream. Someone came out from the ancient dream path. It was a woman with peerless beauty. Her entire body was enveloped in a hazy light that drew everyone into a dream. She attacked furiously on the spot. There were celestial venerables who spat out blood, and powerhouses who staggered back with their brows split open. It's her, the most stunning woman of our era, the number one beauty of the Yang realm, the nine nether gods said with a trembling voice. Today, he saw the truth here, and his emotions were fluctuating violently. Unfortunately, this was a prepared massacre to destroy the ancient dream path. Those people had figured out all of the peak powers of the ancient dream path and calculated them. Even if this woman came back to life and killed her way out of seclusion, she couldn't do anything about it. She herself also met with a death calamity. That was because at the same time, someone was laughing loudly. The sound waves caused heaven and earth to crack and the entire ancient dream path to explode. The so-called domains lost their effectiveness and the mountains and rivers were disintegrating. This was an elder. He wasn't tall and was thin and shriveled, but his strength was terrifyingly powerful. His evolutionary level was unimaginable. Even the most stunning woman of that era, the one who was known to be unrivaled among her peers, the one who could sweep through all enemies in the same realm, was nursing a grievance. She was sent flying by those golden fists and coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. The world is boundless. Who in this world can contend against me? The shriveled elder laughed loudly. His head of white hair danced about. He was quite deranged and incomparably tyrannical. He wore a golden mask that was like the face of a ghost, ferocious and intimidating. It's actually him. Seeing this scene, the nine nether god trembled. Even though that shriveled figure wore a mask, he still recognized who it was with a single glance. It's actually him. He led the masses and destroyed the ancient dream path. The nine nether god couldn't help but cry out. He didn't need to think too much. This person definitely allied with an evolutionary family that wasn't weaker than the ancient dream path, and there were at least two families. Only then could they massacre this place and realize the great cause of completely destroying one of the top 10. Chapter 1075. You know him? Who is he? Chu Feng asked. That old man was too powerful. His whole body was flowing with great Tao fragments, and his divine might was unparalleled. Of course I know him. Who doesn't know the famous martial madman who is known to be invincible in the north of the Yang realm? The nine underworlds stared at the crack in the golden void. That kind of aura, that kind of domineering aura, was deeply engraved in its mind. It would never forget it in this lifetime. Who would have thought that after my brother and I died, he would still be alive and improve further? If my brother doesn't come out, not many can keep him in check. The nine underworlds was depressed. Both it and its sworn brother were dead, but the person they fought before was still alive and so domineering. How could it feel at ease? Moreover, it had already deduced how the beauty it liked, the number one beauty in the Yang realm, died. Everything was already destined after meeting the martial madman. Boom! The martial madman attacked again, and the heavens and the earth split. He just blew a breath of air, and the ancient dream path collapsed. In the big explosion, the divine kings and deities were almost wiped out. A celestial venerable roared with tears of blood in his eyes. He climbed out from the pile of corpses to fight the martial madman. In the end, the martial madman raised his hand and his golden finger glowed. He tore the ancient dream path, celestial venerable, into two, and blood splattered everywhere. He was so domineering, killing his enemies like tearing a painting. No one could stand in front of him, and no one could stop his footsteps. What kind of person is the martial madman? Chu Feng asked anxiously. He had a feeling that this martial arts madman might still be alive. Perhaps he was still alive. Would he meet such an overbearing evolver in the future? How strong was he? Chu Feng knew. How strong is someone who dared to challenge my brother? The nine underworlds sighed. Even it felt a lingering fear when it thought of how terrifying the martial madman was. It added, You're the only one who was able to retreat alive after fighting with my big brother. Moreover, you fought for 800 moves. Chu Feng couldn't help but be moved when he heard this. What kind of person was that sworn brother of hers? He controlled 1/10 of the Yang realm's territory, swept through thousands of armies, destroyed sects, and annihilated aristocratic families. He was invincible in the Yang realm for an era. There was actually someone who could fight with him for 800 rounds and still leave alive. This in itself was a big event. It could only be said that the martial madman was too terrifying. The most important thing was that the 9 underworld spirit and his big brother had died for some reason, long departed from this world. However, this martial madman was still alive, daring to go to the dream, destroying ancient road. Now that my big brother is dead, is he really going to swallow the world? The 9 underworld relic had complicated feelings. His big brother was originally an overlord who could suppress the martial madman, but he had died young. Live on, the dream ancient path will not be destroyed. It will reappear. The Almighty from the dream ancient path roared at the prettiest lady of the Yang realm. His white hair was stained with blood as he staggered forward towards the martial madman in an attempt to stop this domineering and terrifying evolver. Who dares to block my path? The martial madman laughed heartily, causing the people on his side to cough up blood and feel as if their bodies were about to explode. This was the result of his deliberate control. Otherwise, there was no telling how many people would have died and their bodies and souls would have been shattered. The martial madman moved forward. Terrifying patterns condensed on his golden fist and densely covered his fist. He punched forward with great strides, casual and willful. Boom! It was too powerful and too terrifying. The old man from the dream ancient path waved his hands and performed a supreme technique, but it was forcefully penetrated and both his arms exploded. At the same time, a huge bloody hole appeared on his body, following which blood gushed out from his body continuously before he disintegrated with a pop. In the distance, the prettiest lady of the Yang realm felt pain in her heart, but she did not hesitate. She had already soared into the sky and wanted to leave this place. However, she felt that there was not much hope. Since the other party had come knocking on their door, a stunning expert like her would definitely be taken care of and would not be let go. That was because many believed that given time, she would surpass everyone in the dream ancient path, including the martial madman among her enemies. She would be able to establish a sect in the future and restore the glory of the dream ancient path. How could her opponents let go of such a talent? Sure enough, her guess unfortunately came true. A large hand that was as black as ink slammed down from the sky, covering her beneath it. Apart from the martial madman, there was another terrifying existence. No, the netherworld monarch cried. Even though he knew that this was something that happened thousands of years ago, he still couldn't help but cry out because he was personally there. Meanwhile, Chu Feng's brows were also furrowed as he clenched his fists so hard that they turned white. You're all shameless and intolerable bullies. You took advantage of the fact that my sect's patriarch had already passed away to bully us. Why didn't you dare to do so in the past? Within the bloody mist, the remnant soul of the dream ancient path howled in grief. It was filled with indignation and unwillingness. Along with a rain of blood, it rushed towards the black hand in the sky, wanting to help the seeds of hope in his sect fight for a chance of survival. At the same time, its remnant soul was chanting an incantation to drive the obsessions of all the dead disciples into a blood sacrifice, causing the entire world to tremble and wail. Indeed, I want to clash with your patriarch, but I was delayed due to an important matter. I didn't expect him to die before me and pass away, said the martial madman. His eyes were filled with arrogance and tyranny. He wasn't even afraid of the dream ancient past patriarch and wanted to fight him. As expected, he was a madman. At this moment, the dream ancient path had become a terrifying sacrificial ground. The entire training field was bleeding. Whether it was the floating islands or the towering mountains, Everything had turned crimson as divine blood burned. Patriarch, do you know? Our dream ancient path is facing a great calamity and is about to be removed from the world. Our disciples and followers have withered away, and everyone has been killed. This is an unprecedented calamity and a bloodbath. The remnant soul of the Almighty soul howled in grief and anger. The martial madman sneered. So what if they die? How many supreme sects have been destroyed since ancient times? Die. When he said the word die, he punched out, causing the world to tremble violently. All the bloody mist exploded and burned. The remnant's souls and obsessions were completely obliterated by him. At the same time, he attacked together with a black hand in the sky to target the number one beauty of the Yang realm. Even someone as powerful as them was afraid that if this stunning woman of this era wasn't eliminated, the dream ancient path wouldn't be destroyed. The world was dyed with blood, and the sky was dyed red. The world was silent. Even the divine kings they brought along were trembling. This battle was too terrifying and made their hearts throb. The ground was covered in blood. One of the top 10 in the Yang realm was destroyed, just like that. Rumble. Suddenly, in the stillness of the void, the heavens and the earth began to shake. It was as if a path of reincarnation had opened up. It was hazy and indistinct, and then it exploded. Why what? A bleak voice sounded from the depths of ancient dream path, carrying endless sorrow as well as endless hatred. It was a low roar from that place. Not dead? Didn't you transform into the Tao? In the sky, the giant black hand quickly retracted into the clouds, and a shocked and fearful voice came from it. A blurry image of an enormous creature appeared in the endless distance underground. Interesting. Returning from the afterlife. The martial madman didn't retreat. Instead, he was very curious. His arrogant attitude and overbearing aura didn't diminish. The blurry silhouette of the creature was too terrifying and indescribable. Chapter 1076. Inside the vein, the black shadow was too huge. Moreover, its energy was extremely terrifying, causing the complete laws of the Yang realm to be unable to withstand it. The universe was cracking and silently collapsing. Deep underground, a corner of the huge black shadow of the Patriarch appeared. It was as though it was going to crush the world and destroy all living things. Chu Feng's mind was blown and his vision darkened. Just how powerful was this Patriarch to be able to suppress the martial madman? Of course, what shocked him the most was the martial madman's words, returning from the afterlife. Could the Patriarch of the ancient dream path actually reach this step? This person went to reincarnate and stepped on the path of reincarnation. But in the end, he sensed something and turned back. This was too heaven-defying. He had never heard of such an expert before. The Nine Nether Spirit was also alarmed. It could hear and see everything clearly. It could feel the scene in front of it. A path really did appear in the void. Chu Feng had been to the path of reincarnation before and naturally knew the specific situation. He had just seen a familiar path that actually appeared in the void of the Yang realm. The Patriarch of the ancient dream path had returned. What kind of terrifying evolver was this? Chu Feng guessed that perhaps only such a person was qualified to step on the path of reincarnation and explore it. It was no wonder that evolvers of other realms would turn pale at the mention of reincarnation. So what if you return from reincarnation? Can you change everything? Can you kill me? It just so happens that I came here to find you. The martial madman spoke. He was as domineering as ever. Compared to his skinny and withered body, there was a strong sense of contrast. In the heavens, the large black hand that covered the stars and moon retreated. A voice rang out, saying, "Be careful, this is the ancestor of the ancient dream path." The reason why the top 10 evolutionary sects are able to stand tall without falling is because of existences like him. The martial madman was indifferent and fearless. The golden chi radiating from his body were like spears that reached the sky. The scene was terrifying and sharp. What's there to be afraid of? Even if he was in his peak state, I would still kill my way to him. Moreover, he is already transformed into the Tao. So what is left of him? The martial madman took the initiative to step forward and was about to make a move. A sigh came from underground. It was filled with endless sorrow and vicissitudes of life. Finally, a furious roar erupted. His sect had been destroyed. Even if he had a high realm, he could not bear it. Ancestor dream, ancient Tao, was like a crazed demon. Roar! The ground exploded apart, and it was like a chaotic ancient devil that had been excavated during the creation of a new era. Killing intent filled the surroundings as it poured into the nine heavens, and it was overbearing and horrifying. Cultivators of the ancient dream path were supposed to be peaceful, tranquil, and elegant. But now, he was as crazy as a demon lord. Kill! A gigantic figure that seemed to be able to fill up the entire heaven and earth appeared, just like that, and slammed a palm towards the martial madman. At the same time, his mental energy wreaked havoc and distorted the heaven and earth. The ultimate techniques of the ancient dream path were unleashed at the same time. You think I'm afraid of you? The martial madman was extremely arrogant, but he did have the capital to back it up. His fist glowed as the golden radiance turned the universe upside down. It was as if he wanted to obliterate the space-time of eternity. The void was being destroyed, crushed by a pair of golden fists, clashing with the ancient dream path's ancestor, tangling with all types of exceptional wondrous techniques, shaking intensely. It's a little familiar. It looks like the extreme martial lineage's millstone fist. Chu Feng's pupil shrank, but he couldn't be sure. It seemed to be many times more complicated than the millstone fist. Roar! The ancient dream path's ancestor seemed to be possessed. He erupted with immeasurable energy and performed the ultimate wondrous technique, sweeping through the everlasting sky and distorting the entire world with his mental energy. Space was broken inch by inch. That was the interception of the mental energy, forcefully dividing it into a small world. However, the martial madman was too astonishing. His entire body shone with dazzling golden radiance like an immortal monument. He stood there and wasn't killed. Then, as if a dam had burst, the great Tao's fragments covered the sky and earth. That was a confrontation between the strong and the pinnacle of evolvers, completely drowning this place. In the sky, the black hand reached down, but with a muffled groan, the palm was cut in half. Black demonic blood spilled, illuminating the heaven and earth with majestic black light. It was too terrifying. The black hand retreated and disappeared into the darkness. Meng Qinxiu, I only have one goal in coming here, to destroy your orthodoxy and kill your disciples. I heard that the ancient dream path contains the secret to stepping onto the ultimate path of evolution. Hand it over and allow me to comprehend it. Then I'll let you go. The martial madman spoke and revealed the reason. Animal, the patriarch of the ancient dream path, was furious. Don't say that I don't have it. Even if I had it, I wouldn't hand it over to someone like you. The martial madman laughed. Haha, so what if you're stubborn? I'll imprison your soul and destroy the foundation of your ancient dream path. I'll find it myself. The battle here was intense. Even though the martial madman was domineering, he was already covered in blood. He had endured terrifying pressure and encountered an unparalleled opponent. At this moment, the patriarch of the ancient dream path revealed his true appearance. What kind of person was he? His huge body was too terrifying. There was a scarlet wound on his mouth, and the sharp, snow-white fangs were slanted to one side of his face. He only had one scarlet eye, and the other was a black hole. On his head, there was a sparkling dragon horn and a black demon horn. There was no hair, and his scalp was covered with fish scales. Was he still human? There were accurate records that said he was a living being that had evolved from the human race. How did he become like this? Once he approached that step, he would become neither human nor ghost. Would he evolve to the point where he couldn't control anything? Who knew what he would end up like? Moreover, this was only the initial stage. At the very least, he still had a certain form. Later on, He would become more and more terrifying and evolve into a state that had never been seen before in the human world. As for his body, it was submerged in the hazy light and couldn't be seen. It was obvious that he had already undergone some changes and became even more terrifying. Rumble. Vaguely, a centipede-like tail lashed out and collapsed the sky. That was a part of the ancient dream path's physical body. Even the 9 underworlds were terrified. Is this the only way to become an ultimate expert? Chu Feng felt extremely uneasy. He resisted from the bottom of his heart and wasn't willing to take such a path. Meng Qianxiu, stop bluffing. You've already transformed into the Tao, and your physical body no longer exists. At most, you'll only have a few broken bones left. What's the use of stubbornly holding on? In the sky, the black hand didn't dare to come down, but it was sneering as it exposed the ancient dream path's shortcomings and pointed out his fatal weakness. As for the martial madman, he didn't utter a single word and only attacked fiercely as if he had gone mad. His powerful and terrifying battle prowess made him incomparably fearsome and invincible. Even the 9 underworlds sucked in a breath of cold air and felt that the martial madman was too abnormal. Rumble. The radiance around the ancient dream path's ancestor dimmed and revealed his true condition. There were actually only a few fangs and a few broken bones left. The rest of his body was filled with soul light and supported by energy. The martial madman attacked fiercely again and again. His fists were like rainbows that pierced through the heaven and earth. When his fingers streaked across the sky, many great Tao laws were obliterated and the order of heaven and earth was scattered. He was too powerful to fight with his physical body and forcefully take down the ancient dream path's ancestor. He wanted to destroy both his body and soul. The 9 underworlds sighed softly. What a pity. The ancient dream path's ancestor was originally very strong, but he has already transformed into the Tao and lost his physical body. He's destined to lose this battle. As for its evaluation of the martial madman, it didn't want to say too much. It had personally witnessed it back then, and saying too much would only make people feel despair. Meng Qianxiu, I admit that you're very heaven-defying. However, you've already stepped onto the reincarnation path, yet you still dare to come back. Aren't you afraid of facing a calamity? A voice came from where the black hand was in the void and disturbed the ancient dream path's ancestors' state of mind. In reality, the 9 underworlds and Chu Feng also had the same thought. Just how heaven-defying was this ultimate evolver from the damning Pure Land to actually be able to turn things around? Even a martial madman opened his mouth and said, I really admire you. As expected of the ancient dream path's ancestor, your spiritual level has been cultivated to an unprecedented level. You can even sense it on the reincarnation path and sense that the sect is in trouble. What's more terrifying is that you can actually stop and turn back. Even he said so. After the truth was confirmed, the world couldn't help but be shocked. The black hand in the sky continued to attack and wanted to disturb Meng Qianxiu's state of mind. What did he do? The price he paid is too great. His soul light passed through the reincarnation path and returned to the ancient dream path. His entire life is ruined, and it's difficult for him to enter reincarnation again. He's destined to be completely obliterated in the Yang realm and become the dust of history. This kind of price was too heavy. He had a backup plan, the martial madman said. He was attacking fiercely, and at the same time, he added, this is even more proof that there's something extraordinary in the ancient dream path that can't be lost. Perhaps it's the secret to the ultimate evolution. This battle caused the sun and moon to lose their luster. The Yang realm's blood rain poured down and shook the primordial land. Boom! In the end, the remaining fangs and bones of the ancient dream path's ancestor disintegrated. He roared in anger, but couldn't change anything. After all, he had already transformed into the Tao. Following that, his entire body turned black. Boundless black mist surged and connected with the ancestral veins underground. Immediately, the entire area was howling with chilly winds and overflowing baleful aura. Something's not right. There's actually a 9 underworlds manor under this peaceful, damning Pure Land. Boom! The ancestor of the ancient dream path opened his mouth and swallowed the broken mountains, rivers, and bloodstains on the ground. His entire body sank into the terrifying Manor. So what if it's Manor? I'll kill my way in. The martial madman shouted. The black hand in the sky said, "Who would have thought that the dignified ancient dream path's ancestor would actually fall into the 9 underworlds and become completely dark, choosing to sink into oblivion?" The martial madman was too powerful and tyrannical. He killed his way into the Manor alone and sank into the unknown darkness. But in the end, he returned empty-handed while dripping with blood and wounds. He didn't find anything. As time passed, the various divine kings and celestial venerables retreated, and the army went far away. The martial madman guarded this place for who knew how many tens of thousands of years and overturned this area. But in the end, he didn't have any harvest. Later on, the martial madman also left. My body falls into darkness, but my heart has light. In the Manor, a speck of light flickered indefinitely. That was a golden spatial crack. Inside, all sorts of prehistoric scenes appeared one after another. Blood and bones emerged. An aged and mechanical voice once drifted through the ages. It was a strand of obsession. "I can see the end of my path, but I can't see the end of your path. I abandoned reincarnation, but still couldn't save the ancient dream path. But in the future, there might be a chance for you to save me." These should be the last words of the ancestor of the ancient dream path before he sank into oblivion. After that, he dissipated and fell into the 9 underworlds' darkness forever, losing his last chance to be reborn. In fact, he could be considered to have died completely and been erased from this world. Chapter 1077. In the space inside the golden crevice, there was an ancient stone table and a scripture made of light gold energy. It was silent. Chu Feng didn't make a sound for a long time, and the 9 underworlds didn't speak either. Both of them were silent. What they had just seen was too shocking. The martial madman had destroyed this place, shocking the world. The ancient dream path's patriarch had returned from the afterlife. It was sad and desolate. That kind of battle between ultimate evolvers made people shudder. At the last moment, who was the ancient dream path's patriarch, saying those words to before he fell? That's right. Not only was he saying that to the prehistoric era's #1 beauty, he was also saying it to me. He had placed too much hope on me. The 9 nether monarchs spoke with a solemn expression. Chu Feng was originally immersed in the battle of the ancient dream path's destruction and wasn't in a good mood. But when he heard these words, he immediately came back to his senses and wanted to kick him away. "You're really shameless." The 9 underworlds shook the coffin and said, "You don't understand." It became serious and said with a solemn expression, "Even if the laws of the Yang realm are complete and suppress everything, a terrifying evolver like the ancient dream path's patriarch will be able to see a corner of the future once he falls into a state of despair. He might have foreseen my arrival today. This is really a historical moment." Seeing him spout nonsense with a serious expression and consider himself as the one chosen by heaven, Chu Feng couldn't bear it anymore. He kicked open the coffin and said, "Why don't you say that he saw me in the blurry river of time? Go play somewhere else. What does a brat like you know?" Bang, bang, bang. Chu Feng beat. The coffin couldn't stand it anymore. It was just a corpse that had been revived in the present world with great difficulty. What was it showing off for? It felt too good about itself. Ouch, it hurts. Be gentle. The coffin is me, and I am the coffin. Ah, I've fallen into the manor of the dead. The 9 underworlds shouted. Half of the coffin sank into the blood-flowing soil. It struggled violently and was quite frightened. "Take out that scripture for me." Chu Feng forced him into the golden crack in midair. The sarcophagus struggled out of the bloody death ground. The netherworld ghost swallowed her saliva secretly and said, "I think we probably won't be able to get our hands on this scripture." This might have been prepared for the former number one beauty in the world of the living. In reality, it really wanted to enter, but it was scared of death, not daring to act recklessly. In fact, Chu Feng seriously suspected that this was left for Qin Luoyin's previous incarnation. If he were to barge in, he might throw his life away if he wasn't careful. Sacrifice your soul and flesh. Depending on how much you offer, you can obtain a corresponding scripture. At this time, the mechanical voice sounded inflexible and cold, carrying out the necessary reminder. Chu Feng believed that this was an artifact similar to the energy inheritance tower on Earth. The ninth nether spirit immediately shouted, "Ancient dustboat, big brother, lend me some soul flesh." This shameless fellow was still feeling good about himself, thinking that he was some heaven's chosen one. Of course, it could also be doing this on purpose to take advantage of Chu Feng's youth. Faced with this old fellow, Chu Feng once again kicked him into the ninth netherworld deathland and ignored his furious howls and torment there. He grabbed a handful of special soil and scattered it into the golden crack, offering it without the slightest hesitation. "You can choose a page of scripture," the mechanical voice reminded coldly. "Only one page." Chu Feng was astonished. Although there was still reincarnation soil in the stone jar, there wasn't a lot. This kind of special soil was something that even the netherworld ghost's big brother couldn't forget and wanted to obtain. If one page required a handful of reincarnation soil, he didn't know if this transaction was worthwhile. Choose the first page. There was nothing more to say. In any case, the first transaction had been made, so he naturally wouldn't waste it. Moreover, he couldn't skip the selection of the scripture. A page of scripture flew up and rushed over with a whoosh, suspending in front of Chu Feng's forehead. In an instant, densely packed words were branded into his spiritual consciousness, following which that golden page of scripture shot out like lightning and landed on the stone table, returning to the scripture. Could it be the secret of the ultimate evolution? Or was it just the inheritance of the ancient dream path? Chu Feng closed his eyes and carefully read this page of scripture in his mind. This was a breathing technique that was very familiar and profound. It was quite similar to the inheritance of the Damong Pure Land, but it wasn't exactly the same. This astonished Chu Feng. From his point of view, it was either the secret of the ultimate evolution or the damning breathing technique. However, it was unexpected. When he was in the serene realm, he had obtained the damning breathing technique and used it to support his evolution to the mirror realm or the god realm. However, the more profound parts were missing. Logically speaking, even if it was compared to the scripture in the Yang realm, there shouldn't be much difference in the early stages. However, this wasn't the case at the moment. Could it be that this is the true inheritance of the ancient dream path, a supreme breathing technique that was damaged when it was passed down to the serene realm? Is it different from the original scripture? Chu Feng was suspicious. At the same time, he was also guessing whether there were other secrets within. For example, the ultimate evolution? No matter what, he kept it in mind. It was better to study it in detail after leaving this place. He thought for a moment and began to offer sacrifices. He grabbed another handful of reincarnation soil and scattered it into the golden crack space. The sparkling granules were obviously extraordinary and were quickly absorbed. "Where's the second page of scripture? Why didn't you send it over?" Chu Feng asked after waiting for a long time. "The second page requires 2 handfuls of reincarnation soil," the mechanical voice reminded him. What a scam. Chu Feng spat out blood. This was doubled? Since he had already begun offering sacrifices, he didn't want to waste it. He scattered another handful of reincarnation soil, which transformed into intense divine light that entered the small world. The second page of scripture flew over and connected with the space between his eyebrows. Many rune imprints entered his spirit and were memorized by him. It was still the strange breathing technique. This was the follow-up part. How much soul flesh does the third page need? Chu Feng asked. 4 times the amount. Chu Feng immediately couldn't sit still. This was simply too dark. Although the scripture was very thin and didn't have many pages, It was expanding as he flipped through it. He reckoned he wouldn't have enough reincarnation soil left if he wanted to finish reading the entire scripture. In fact, it might not even be enough. Don't exchange, it's too much of a loss. Brat, do you know what that is? Soul flesh. It's worth billions of gold. Even my big brother can only dream of it. I dare say that even the ancient dream path hasn't gotten it before. The 9 underworlds drove the sarcophagus out of the palace of the dead and shouted with a pained expression. It emphasized that soul flesh was a priceless treasure. Who is my big brother? He's strong enough to suppress the martial madman. He controls the boundless territory of the Yang realm and has seen all kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures. But he still wants soul flesh. Isn't it just a breathing technique? Although the ancient dream path is strong, it's only one of the several ultimate breathing techniques. It's not like it can firmly occupy the position of number 1 in the world. I definitely can't exchange it anymore. This old man's heart hurts. The future is all mine. In the end, he accidentally spilled the beans. Chu Feng was quite angry. This grandson didn't have any good ideas and was ready to counterattack at any time, hoping to suppress him one day. Then, he decisively gave it another kick. Chu Feng sent it back to the 9 underworlds to reflect. Of course, although he sympathized with the ancient dream path, Chu Feng didn't want to be a fool. The reincarnation soil was a priceless treasure, and he didn't want to squander it like this anymore. Don't tell me that when that descendant from the prehistoric era returns one day, you guys will also take her soul flesh? Of course not. The mechanical voice replied. Then why should I take it from me? This was originally prepared for her. It's only because you made a great contribution to the ancient dream path today that you let go of the angel's innate gift imprint and merged with the reincarnation body. That's why you're given a chance. When he heard such a cold and inflexible explanation, Chu Feng also lost his temper. However, he didn't want to waste the reincarnation soil, even if he was beaten to death. Who knew when he would need it urgently in the future? There was most likely no substitute for this thing. The number 1 beauty who stunned the world of the living is the mother of my child. I'd be a fool if I gave you reincarnation soil. I'll go find her and enter the golden crack space together in the future. Little brat, watch your words, the mechanical voice warned. Chu Feng curled his lips and didn't want to pay attention to it. How dare it cheat him of so much reincarnation soil? He was wondering if the number 1 beauty in the world of the living would recognize him. Even if he found her one day, he reckoned there would be all kinds of variables. Stunning the prehistoric era and awakening today, this kind of person was unimaginably arrogant and looked down on the world. In addition, her talent was so shocking that even the martial madman and the others were afraid that she would surpass them. Now that she had truly returned, it was hard to say what she would think. Back then, when the 9 underworlds shamelessly tried to snatch her, he was chased and killed. Chu Feng wondered if she would fight with him. He reckoned that when they met again, there would be all kinds of possibilities. It was really hard to predict now. Variables. No matter what, Chu Feng didn't want to be blackened reincarnation soil here. Therefore, he rejected the following deal. You really don't want to continue? On account of your great contribution to the ancient dream path today and the complete reincarnation of my sex angel, I'll give you some preferential treatment. The mechanical voice sounded and told Chu Feng that he only needed a handful of reincarnation soil and it would give him the last page of the special scripture. Then, it added, it's related to the ultimate evolution. Chu Feng was excited when he heard this and felt a little grateful. He didn't think that the energy inheritance tool here would be so generous. It thought about what he was worried about and thought about what he was worried about, putting itself in his shoes. Here you go. Chu Feng waved his hand and scattered a handful of reincarnation soil, waiting for the page of the scripture. Boom! This time, the commotion was huge. It was as if a blood-stained golden sky had crashed down. It was grand and huge, and the golden light was surrounded by crimson mist. Blood energy surged, and the murderous intent shocked the world. Chu Feng was hit hard, and his spiritual consciousness was in great pain. Then, he saw many characters that were branded into the bottom of his heart. In an instant, as Chu Feng closed his eyes to comprehend, many fist-sized little people appeared around him. They were all him. Some were meditating, some were punching, some were spitting out pre-celestial chi, and some were opening their mouths to absorb the light of the sun and moon. Outside his body, there were hundreds of 3-inch-tall little people in different postures. All of them were golden in color, but they were surrounded by bloody mist. It was very special and mysterious. I'll go into seclusion from now on. We'll meet again in the mortal world after 13 years, Chu Feng said in a low voice. Chapter 1078. Does it look familiar to you? Chu Feng immediately shivered. Did this mean that he had been swindled of another handful of reincarnation soil? Chu Feng really wanted to rush into the golden crack space, pull out that mechanical monster, and beat it into pieces. It actually tricked him again and again. Of course, he didn't lose his cool. He stared at the stone coffin again and was a little suspicious. Could it be that this grandson of a nine-nether spirit was purposely spouting nonsense and causing trouble for no reason? The mechanical voice sounded, "Foolish, this is the ultimate evolution scripture. How dare a corpse talk nonsense? You all don't understand." It taught the nine-nether spirit a lesson and even looked down on Chu Feng. The nine-nether spirit shook the coffin and said, "Are you scolding? How dare you put on airs in front of this old man? Do you know who I am? You must be tired of living." The mechanical voice sounded, "I don't want to talk to a malicious spirit like you. This scripture contains profound meanings that no one has been able to comprehend since ancient times. It is truly a supreme technique." Hearing this, Chu Feng's expression immediately collapsed. No one could comprehend it. It sounded incredible, but it was actually just a piece of waste paper. Had it been tricked by that damned mechanical monster again? However, the nine-nether spirit didn't immediately refute it. It looked stunned and then shouted, "I know, it's actually a supreme, profound meaning from the founding period." What was going on? After being despised and looked down upon for a while, it actually acknowledged that this was a supreme scripture? Was this a reversal? Chu Feng revealed a doubtful expression. This meant that he had really obtained a priceless scripture. He immediately became excited and looked at the nine-nether spirit. "Are you sure?" The nine-nether spirit was stunned and shouted, "What are you thinking? You've been tricked by this mechanical monster." Without another word, Chu Feng started to kick the stone coffin. Wasn't this grandson's acting too bad? Just now, it had already shouted that it was a supreme, profound meaning, and now it still wanted to deny it. Did it really think it was easy to fool him? "Stop! It's a misunderstanding. Let me explain." The nine-nether spirit hurriedly explained. "My big brother practiced this scripture and once said that it was the ultimate technique. But in the end, even with his state of mind, he was so angry that he was cursing. This is a deceptive technique. Don't be fooled by the legends. It's actually very problematic. You'll get into trouble if you practice it." The nine nether demons shouted for a while, which finally allowed Chu Feng to roughly understand the situation. This page of scripture was extremely famous and was indeed considered to be a world-shocking chapter. However, many people gave up in the end. Some people did not feel anything after practicing. Some people encountered big problems after practicing and had to give up in the end. And some people almost practiced to death. When Chu Feng heard this, he was quite surprised. Could it be that the martial madman was looking for this technique? The 9 underworlds rejected it right away, saying that in prehistoric times, this page of scripture had been circulated within a certain range, so it couldn't be considered an exclusive secret. So the big shots had practiced it before. When Chu Feng heard this, white smoke almost spurted out of his nose. He was really angry. It was just a common product, but he had actually been swindled out of a handful of reincarnation soil. This damn mechanical monster. Motherf asterisk cur. Get the F asterisk CK out here. Give me back my soul meat. I want a refund. He was truly enraged. He had always been the one duping people, but today, he was being duped by a mechanical monster. This was intolerable. Be careful with your words. Don't regret it for the rest of your life. The mechanical voice reminded, although there are scriptures circulating in the outside world, the Mother Scripture is here. The so-called Mother Scripture was that page of Scripture that emitted golden light and was surrounded by blood chi. This was the original version. Don't listen to its nonsense. The original version also recorded the same Scripture. There's no difference. Even my big brother couldn't practice it. So who else in this world can? The more Chu Feng heard, the uglier his expression became. He felt that he had been cheated badly. Whether or not he can practice, it is his own problem, not the Scripture's problem. Besides, how do you know that your big brother couldn't practice it? The nine underworld's demon retorted, if my big brother succeeded, with a steady overlord character, he wouldn't be cursing in private. He would be flustered and exasperated. Chu Feng's face darkened, and he said, give me back my soul meat. Once the transaction is completed, it is not refundable. Hearing this, Chu Feng really wanted to vomit blood. This damned place, this damned mechanical monster, is this still an inanimate object like the Energy Inheritance Tower? Why does it feel like an old demon? He was furious. If you don't return it, we'll leak the secret of this place. The nine underworld's demon threatened. Chu Feng nodded and said, that's right, I'll go find a martial madman and ask him to attack again. The mechanical voice was fearless and said, go find him. Without soul meat, it's useless no matter who comes. They can't open the golden crack space. They can't enter. I have soul meat. I'll lend it to him. Chu Feng was so angry that he slapped the coffin board, making loud banging sounds. Lend me some too. The nine underworld's demon took the opportunity to ask shamelessly. This time, the mechanical voice became silent and no longer spoke. Hurry up and give me back my soul meat. Chu Feng threatened. After a moment of silence, the mechanical voice said, you can choose another page of Scripture. It's free. The third page. Chu Feng chose without hesitation. He wanted to get back some benefits first. Swoosh! A golden piece of paper flew over, seemingly formed from energy and covered with runes. It was connected to the space between his brows, and it was still the breathing technique, which he memorized with his spiritual consciousness. We're even now, the mechanical voice said. Moreover, the golden crack space rumbled and began to close. Wait, we can talk, Chu Feng shouted. He still wanted to have a good conversation with it. In the end, the golden crack space closed even faster, as if it couldn't stand him and was afraid of hearing any more unreasonable requests. Everything can be discussed. What are you in such a hurry for? Chu Feng shouted. He was really a bit impatient. He wanted to try to communicate and understand more. However, with a flash of golden light, the crack closed completely. Chu Feng was speechless. He didn't do anything to it. Why did it run away so decisively and cut off all contact with the outside world? It can tell you're not a good person at first glance. So it decisively ran away. The nine underworld's demon was gloating. I've obtained 3 pages of the ancient dream path's breathing technique. Just how far can I cultivate it? Chu Feng frowned, unable to grasp the situation. The 3 pages correspond to the Divine King level and touch the edge of the Celestial Venerable level. If you need more chapters, you can come here to trade in the future. A mechanical voice came from Een Manor. The nine underworld's demon immediately shouted, did you see that? It's a naked temptation. It's even prepared to trick you. It won't give up until it swindles the soul and flesh in your hands. It's not a good person, just like you. What are you saying? Chu Feng kicked over the stone coffin. After a while, they returned to the surface and called the donkey's spirit over. Chu Feng placed the stone coffin back into the body of the carriage. Go! He drove the hearse and disappeared over the horizon. Brat, you want to enter seclusion for 13 years? On the way, the nine underworld's demon was very dissatisfied with being sat on, but he couldn't help but ask Chu Feng out of curiosity. That was because Chu Feng had been sitting cross-legged ever since he got on the carriage. He was thinking about something along the way as if he had a lot on his mind. Don't disturb me, Chu Feng said. Numerous balls of light appeared around his body, and they were all 3 inches tall. They sat cross-legged in the air and revolved around his true body. "You're really cultivating?" The 9 Underworld's demon was astonished. "I think I've succeeded," Chu Feng said in a deep voice. Chapter 1079. Learned it. The 9th Nether Spirit was so shocked that its jaw dropped. Who was this kid to be able to learn it? Even its big brother was troubled by it back then and ended up cursing him. What virtue and ability did this brat have to say that he had mastered the scripture just after obtaining it? However, it soon realized that no one could learn it. He must have been tricked. With a click, he put his dislocated jaw back to its original position. He didn't want to say anything else and just sneered. Chu Feng scolded. "What are you laughing at? You sound like an old pumpkin with a hole in it. It's so unpleasant to hear." "Kid, are you going to say something?" Chu Feng stood up and stretched his muscles. He performed a strange fist technique. His arms and fists were emitting a faint golden glow while being surrounded by blood chi. The air exploded. His speed was clearly very slow, but the fist imprints that he struck out were somewhat terrifying. Countless tiny versions of themselves appeared and lingered around the fist imprints. The so-called radiance was a miniature version of himself. What was going on? The 9th Nether Spirit was greatly moved. Not only that, Chu Feng's entire body was changing. When he stretched his body, it was the same from head to toe. The light outside his body was in the form of tiny humanoid particles. When he sat with his legs crossed, the light was 3 inches tall, but now it was the size of an ant. Moreover, it was his image and densely covered his body. I've learned something. I call it the ultimate evolutionary fist. So far, I've been tricked by the mechanical monster of the ancient dream path. This seems to be just a page of a fist technique. Maybe I need to learn more. Chu Feng was practicing the strange fist technique as he pondered over it. The 9th Nether Spirit finally came back to its senses. It was quite surprised and immediately understood when it thought of its big brother situation. How could an evolver that could keep the martial madman in check not be terrifying? He was definitely a peerless overlord. The 9th Nether Spirit's big brother had also learned something and performed a terrifying finger technique. Heaven-mending finger. It was quite domineering. The so-called heaven-mending finger was just a fancy name. If it could even mend the sky, it naturally meant that it was unfathomable. However, the truth was that the finger could spread rules and destroy everything. After hearing what it said, Chu Feng asked in surprise, "Didn't you say that your brother didn't succeed? With my big brother's level of evolution, he can poke a hole in the sky with a casual point of his finger and shatter a complete Great Tao law. The requirements for his so-called mastery are naturally ridiculously high. You can't imagine it. However, during this period of time, he managed to learn a few tricks. After its explanation, Chu Feng immediately understood what was going on. At the same time, he wanted to know more about it and have the 9 underworlds explain in detail. Let's put it this way. That page of the Ultimate Evolution Scripture is very strange. My big brother had a certain level of understanding at different stages of evolution, but it was broken and not continuous. The 9 Nether only talked about some of the past. After comprehending some things from this page of scripture, there was no way to continue. It was equivalent to cutting off the path forward. However, when his big brother gave up and no longer paid attention to it, he accidentally bathed in the blood of 100 dragons and successfully practiced it again. In addition, there was one time when his big brother was extremely daring and secretly attacked the patriarch of one of the 10 greats in his previous life. He used his world-shaking spiritual power to invade the patriarch's mind in order to seize the patriarch's highest breathing technique. He also unexpectedly gained something and allowed the broken path to continue. Wait a minute, what did your big brother do? He attacked some old fart. Chu Feng was quite speechless after hearing this. He already understood that this prehistoric madman was definitely not a good person. He dared to secretly attack an old patriarch of one of the 10 greats. He was powerful and sinister enough. It was very risky. That time, my big brother almost had an accident. After all, He was only slightly stronger than that old fart, but he forcefully invaded his main battlefield, the depths of his mind. He almost failed. Why didn't he find a soft persimmon to bully? Chu Feng asked. Do you think he didn't want to? Those soft persimmons have restrictions on their minds and are too weak. They'll be burned to ashes as soon as they're invaded. In addition, the secrets of the last few layers of the breathing techniques of some races can't be understood or grasped without reaching the patriarch's level. After thinking about it, my big brother could only find their old patriarch to attack. What else could Chu Feng say? He could only sigh. How ruthless. At the same time, he also understood that the Nine Nether's virtue was probably greatly influenced by his big brother's conduct. Your big brother attacked and forcefully seized an ultimate breathing technique? Chu Feng asked. He couldn't calm down because he was quite shaken by the news. No, he was only slightly stronger than that old fart. He didn't fight to the death, the Nine Nether said. If he forcibly seized the breathing technique, that old fart would probably die and his big brother might also fail. That was because invading the mind of an old patriarch of that level was even more dangerous than fighting a life and death battle. The Nine Nether added, the most important reason is that my big brother was afraid of alerting the enemy and wanted to attack the old farts of the other races. Chu Feng felt dizzy after hearing this. His big brother was really black-hearted and fierce enough. He attacked evolvers of this level and targeted more than one. One had to know that those targets were all sect ancestors who had grasped ultimate breathing techniques. My big brother discovered that after invading the spiritual core of that old patriarch, he could cultivate the so-called ultimate evolution technique, even though he didn't obtain the highest breathing technique of the race. Why is that? Chu Feng was astonished. When he was fighting against that patriarch, the highest inheritance of the race surged crazily from the depths of his spirit. The runes were like the sea, and the light surged to the sky, enveloping my big brother's invading spirit within. His big brother had a feeling at that time and was enlightened. He deduced a page of scripture, which was the so-called ultimate evolution technique. It was as if he had been hatched. There was such a thing? Chu Feng was flabbergasted. That's why my big brother paid even more attention to the world's most powerful breathing techniques. That madman guessed that the ultimate breathing techniques might have such an effect. They could connect the broken path and hatch that page of ultimate evolution technique. Unfortunately, it was too difficult to make a move against beings at the level of the 10 great patriarchs. Invading their minds was even more difficult than hunting them down. That was especially true because that madman had done it covertly the first time and wiped away all traces. But what kind of character was that old patriarch? Although he hadn't found the real culprit, he had still alerted the enemy and alerted the others. Later on, my big brother attacked twice but failed. The Nine Nether spirit was regretful. After all, evolvers of that level were only 1 or 2 levels weaker than his big brother. Chu Feng's face twitched slightly. Your big brother is really ferocious. Is there any creature in this world that he doesn't dare to attack? There is. It's very troublesome to hide in special terrains and travel too far on an indescribable path. It's not worth fighting against him. At the same time, the Nine Nether spirit revealed that his big brother couldn't find a chance to attack those old fellows, so he extended his dark hand to evolvers like the martial madman. That was because his big brother heard that the martial madman's breathing technique was very particular and was suspected to be from the Buried Heaven period, so he attacked him. It was a pity that although the martial madman's head was bleeding and his body was covered in blood, the martial madman's light escape technique could be ranked among the best in the world. The martial madman successfully escaped. Chu Feng was speechless for a long time after hearing the news. It turned out that there was such a big secret. He had thought that the martial madman had provoked the Nine Nether Spirit's big brother, but he didn't expect that he was the victim. For some reason, Chu Feng was secretly delighted when he found out that the overbearing martial madman had been attacked. The main reason was that he had personally witnessed the martial madman's domineering behavior in the ancient dream path. He was insufferably arrogant as he massacred everyone. It turned out that there was someone who could torment the martial madman like that. Naturally, Chu Feng felt delighted. Why didn't you reveal the details earlier? Chu Feng asked. The Nine Nether Spirit coughed dryly and said, My big brother is crazy enough to look for people to attack him secretly. It's not something to be proud of. The martial madman concluded that if one wanted to cultivate that page of scripture, they could use the ultimate breathing technique to incubate it. A clan's breathing technique was equivalent to a bridge on a broken road, but it could only be used once. So your big brother wants to find a few more people to attack. The Nine Nether Spirit didn't answer, but said another feasible way, which was to guide blood into the body, which could also be considered a bridge of sorts. Why is that? Anyway, after my big brother bathed in the 100 dragon blood, he received a broken road. As for the reason, the martial madman believed that all living things had a spirit, and that there was some kind of primordial code hidden in the genes of all living beings, which contained a special scripture. At this point, there was no need for further explanation. Chu Feng already understood. In addition, you also saw in the ancient dream path that the page of scripture is golden in color, but the outside is surrounded by blood energy. This already explains the problem. The Nine Nether Spirit mentioned his big brother's words. You can interpret it like this? For a moment, Chu Feng calmed down and pondered in the hearse. In the end, he came to his senses and felt that something was wrong. Why did this grandson suddenly change his style and treat him so well? He told him the process of how his big brother cultivated. I've told you everything I know, yet you suspect me? The Nine Nether Spirit stomped his feet, causing the coffin lid to tremble. Chu Feng curled his lips and said, You're not a good person. You're vicious and evil. Now that you've suddenly put on a kind face, it's obvious that there's something wrong. The Nine Nether Spirit choked and was so angry that he couldn't speak for a while. He felt that it was rare for him to be kind, but he was misunderstood. Of course, he could also say that he had seen through him. All right, I'll be honest. The more I think about you, the more I feel that there's something wrong with you. You're so young, yet you're so abnormal. You can even take out soul meat. I seriously suspect that there's something wrong with your roots, so I casually made a move and treated you well. It's a kind of investment in advance. Hearing this, Chu Feng was alerted. As expected, it was easy to give himself away when they were together every day. He had to be more careful in the future. He slammed the coffin lid and said, You old thing, you're too utilitarian. Is there still justice in this world? I said I found my conscience, but you didn't believe me. I said it was an investment in my feelings, but you said it was utilitarian. What do you want me to say? What should I do? Chu Feng laughed dryly and didn't mock him. Finally, he asked, How did your big brother die? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.